I'm Kevin Abdulrahman. My guest today is Jad Halaoui.
Okay, I would love to help you.
And here you thought dry cleaning was an easy business.
Yeah.
The misconceptions we have.
Yeah.
We're still married, right?
Yeah. It's just so easy. It's like,
Here's a simple tip for life.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it looks good on my head. So.
It does. It does.
Yeah, you gotta fix it. You know what I mean?
I've had that.
It's those imaginary vibrations there.
Scrap that question.
Yeah.
This is a premium service provided on the podcast.
Yeah. I cracked it.
Worthy discoveries are made on the edge of your efforts. Think about that for a moment. What about never think that you know more than anybody else? Even if you do, that'll close your mind to ideas that might be worth considering. Let that marinate for a minute. These are the thoughts that my guest hasn't and doesn't preach to many, which is why I felt obligated, my duty, to bring him in on the show and make this place a loudspeaker for his thoughts. My guest today is an entrepreneur, engineer, and an avid consumer of knowledge. He's wise, witty, and well-spoken. He was born in Lebanon, grew up between Canada and Saudi Arabia, got his degree in electrical engineering from McGill University, which then set him up for a job as a field engineer with Schlumberger. They wanted to keep him in North America. He wasn't too fond of the idea, so he decided to quit Casino Royale, James Bond style. A friend asked him to invest in his business. Soon he found himself working on that business. And within 2 weeks, he had come to Dubai, leaving his car parked at the Schlumberger car park, which we will find out and see if it's still there, or I'm pretty sure by now it's been towed away. When my guest realizes there is a challenge, he gets reading, researching, and introspecting. He goes out and has curious conversations. He gathers the information, he makes his decision, he takes action. And the process repeats. My guest forms part of the duo that is Washmen, the company that aims to eliminate the washing machine from your home. He's the co-founder and chief operating officer of what is the UAE's leading laundry and dry cleaning business. What started as a light app in 2015 has now become a fully fledged business that serves over 80,000 customers and processes over 500,000 items a month from their 2 facilities in Dubai. Check out their phenomenal growth. In 2015, Washmen started with their pre-seed funding of $27,500. In July 2015, they closed their seed funding at $400,000. In October 2016, they raised their Series A funding, which is undisclosed. In 2019, they raised their Series B funding of $6.2 million. Now that's a cause for many to celebrate. But my guest isn't one who celebrates, unless of course it's weddings, which you'll find out he loves. He drives his joy from the process of working, the process of building, the process of managing, the process of learning something new. For my guest, the work never stops because one can always learn, and our internal journeys is one that never ends. My guest is curious to continuously learn, confident in knowing that things can be done better, and calm under pressure. If you're into learning, earning, entrepreneurship, or just some life insights, grab your popcorn and attention because my guest today is a rapid-fire machine gun of thoughts. This is How Do They Do It? I'm Kevin Abdulrahman. My guest today is Jad Halaoui. Bro, I appreciate you making your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
What we have in common is that we talk to ourselves.
Yeah.
Tell us more about how you spend your time talking to yourself.
So like we were saying earlier, offline, I used to love writing when I was in oil and gas. I had 3 weeks to myself every now and then. I'd be traveling around, moving around. And then I had the ability to kind of just take time off of work and write down my reflections. But in the startup world, life was just moving so fast. There's no weekends. I didn't have my week off that I used to have, or the 3 weeks off that I used to have. So I decided that I'm just gonna get a microphone and start talking to myself. So first went on voice memos on Apple, on my iPhone. And then after that, I upgraded to like a full podcast setup with a Zoom H6 and like a Rode mic and the headphones. And every morning I would just sit down and just kind of talk to myself, work through the difficult thoughts that I was having, all the challenging emotions that, you go through as a startup founder.
Just soundboarding with yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, reflecting out loud. It's just like when you write, when you're writing, not even journaling, just like writing to think through an idea deeply, which is something that, we don't really do as much as we get older. When you're a kid, that's an assignment they give you in high school.
You ponder.
Do this. Yeah, you're given a subject and you're told, think about this.
Yeah.
Then as we get older, it's like, well, you stop thinking for yourself and you kind of just become a conductor of information from everywhere around you, and then you have to synthesize it in a certain way. And when you're really busy, that synthesis is what takes time.
I think it also scares people to simmer in their own thoughts. Sometimes we're too scared to actually go deeper. Like, I have this thought or this feeling.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
For sure. Because there's many reasons behind it. We'll get into it at some point in time. But, when you get so used to being with your phone, when you get so used to being told what to think about by a thing that is external to you, whether that's a phone, whether that's TechCrunch news or Reuters news or WhatsApp notifications through your friends or an email that comes in from an external party, it's much easier to react to these little bits and pieces than to really go in deep within a thought, because that kind of requires some kind of self-reflection that is generally very scary to get into. I mean, that's at least my history, my experience with it was, for a long time, I wasn't able to be just with my thoughts. It's almost like I was stuck in motion. You're stuck in movement because you don't want to slow down and say, one moment, I need to think about this.
What was a moment? Can you take me to a moment where I've experienced this, so I know exactly what you're saying, but can you take me through a moment or a time in your life where you were stuck in motion? You knew you had to take a moment to actually go through that thought process or whatever you had to reflect on. What was it? Like, was there an incident, something that happened where you go, hey, okay, I need to take time out. I need to analyze my thoughts. I need to know where I'm going.
So
this could be a dark time, I guess, right? Or a tough situation.
Fair enough. So there were, again, the moment is a culmination of many other moments before it. So there was a period of time where I would wake up in the morning around like 5:30, 6 in the morning. And then I got this TV that had YouTube in it. So before YouTube was on my PC, so I avoided YouTube because it would get me working. So I get on YouTube and I'm watching all these kind of videos about random topics, whether it's Gary Vaynerchuk or Jordan Peterson, or watching some guy talk about watches, or watching some guy talk about something completely random, watching startup videos. How to start a startup on Stanford was a course that they put on YouTube, and I was watching it.
That was the Y Combinator
founder, Sam
right?
Altman,
That's
and Sam Altman was the one who hosted that. And then I got into blitzscreaking, which was hosted by Reid Hoffman, which is the founder of LinkedIn. So I got into that, and I was wondering, why on earth am I doing this at 6:30 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning? And I was just stuck at that, and it was just a loop that would happen over and over and over. And I knew the answer. It was the only way I had to cope with everything that was happening around me. Whether that was the fact that my girlfriend was living somewhere else, and I was working around 15 to 16 hours a day, every single day, no weekends. I was in charge of all the drivers, all the laundries, all of customer service, and of our customers that we had to talk to. So having all of that weight on my shoulders, meanwhile, we were trying to fundraise, and that was a challenge. I was just moving. I didn't want to stop. Even with my thoughts, I wanted someone else to tell me how to think about what was in my mind, right? That's why I was seeking information. Eventually, what happened was we raised the funds, we hired a CTO, we had committed to a very big plan, but then we didn't raise the full amount of funding that we had. And one of the things we were doing, we were opening an office in Beirut. That's where we built out our tech team. And I remember we had just signed the papers for the office. We had signed the papers for incorporating the company before, and then the office, obviously. And then I was walking down the street, and then in just one moment, it's just like everything hit me. I was like, something's not working. Something here is not working. And I just went on my phone, and I had, again, as part of the information overload and information consumption overload, I had read about a company called Reboot.io. So the founder is an ex-venture capitalist who then decided mental health is a serious issue. And for me, I considered the fact that we were always bombarded by notifications to be a serious problem since 2015, since before any before any of the challenges that I started facing.
Get inspired. Whether you're in Dubai for business or pleasure, the last thing you want to do is blow your budget on accommodation, which is why I recommend you check out our host venue partners, Rove Hotels. Beyond being price sensitive, what I love about Rove Hotels is the fact that they are a combination of cafe, culture, and just coolness. Even my guests, many of them, when they arrive before we record or after we finish recording the podcast, they actually comment. They go, wow, this place is cool. The vibe is amazing. And it is amazing. So if you're in Dubai for business or pleasure, I recommend you check out our host venue partners, Rove Hotels. This episode is brought to you by Dojo. Whether you're in business or new to business, you need three things: a good website, traffic, and being able to convert that traffic into paying customers. That's what Dojo does best. They're able to create for you a functional, state-of-the-art website, drive targeted traffic, and put in all the elements needed in order to convert that into paying customers. Isn't that what you want? Of course it is. Give the team at Dojo a call and see how they can help you increase your sales and profits. Tell them I sent you. Their website, mdojo.co.
Notifications are a problem. They dictate your time, they dictate your focus and your attention. And obviously, as part of me being in operations, I didn't know any other way to deal with that with my job other than being so reactive to notifications. And then it really got bad when in July I was having like imaginary like vibrations. I was like, is my phone ringing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've had that.
It's those imaginary vibrations. They're insane.
And
I'm like,
it's actually
there's something.
There's a label for it, right? I think it's called phantom
vibrations.
Right? Phantom vibrations.
Dude, what's insane is that people feel that when they've lost a leg and like, and they've lost a leg or a limb or a finger, they have these phantom pains. Yeah. And we're having phantom vibrations from our phones. I'm like, there's something terribly wrong here, right? And now I can laugh at it. It's so easy to laugh at it now. But when I was going through it, man, the palpitations, my phone rings and I'm like, is it an angry customer? Is it a driver? Did someone get into an accident? Is it my girlfriend? And I go into this very complex world of this person has this ringtone, and this person has this ringtone, and these groups, and it's like just like finding a way to like take this external world and like reshape how I manage to deal with it. And so back to Reboot, I had read about them, and their founder was an ex-venture capitalist that said, okay, clearly mental health is a problem. I kind of thought about it before, even though sometimes you know about the issue, it doesn't mean you're going to know how to manage it. I didn't manage it well, and I ended up being in a position where walking down that street that evening, I'm just like, okay, something's not working here. I can't be having these palpitations. It's just, this is not right.
This is not the life I want.
It's not what I went into being in a startup for. Obviously, challenges should come. Challenges should happen, and we'll discuss what we're going through now. I'm very open about it too, as you know, with what's happening in Lebanon, obviously. But that's not how you're meant to feel. Like you can have challenges, but you should be able to kind of just hold that in and decide, okay, what do I want to do about it? What would I like from the situation and get out of it? So I was going to see my cousin and my now wife, watching the Tunisia versus England game. I think it was the first World Cup 2018, the first game of the group stages. And I remember sitting down, getting there early, and I was just on my phone. I usually don't like to type on my phone. I'm anti-typing on the phone because it takes too long. And for an hour and a half to 2 hours, I was just typing up this message to Reboot, like kind of condensing all the challenges that I was facing. And then just sending them that send button was so relieving. And then it was in that moment that I realized, okay, the challenges that I've been facing are, I am not dealing with all these things that are coming my way in a way that is healthy for me, right? Or in a way that is conducive to good business. And what I mean by good business is like managing the team properly, being there for my customer service, not just as a leader, but also like helping them work through their challenges, because I was so consumed by what I was going through, right? So it was very tactical.
Being reactive
do this, do that. And it's never like stop for a moment. It's okay, what are you going through? What are you doing? Because I didn't have the mental space.
Yes.
So obviously like that leads to kind of not a fragmentation, but then it just kind of leads to a siloed attitude to business and to work, right? So you're siloed from your customer service, you're siloed from your co-founder, you're siloed from your operations, and it's not because it's not because you don't mean well. Let's put it that way. It's because you're stuck and you're trying to cope with yourself. And I said there must be a different way of coping.
And this recording was a coping mechanism?
That was a coping mechanism. So that was before I stopped, right? It started before I stopped, but the upgrade happened after I started with Reboot.
Yeah.
So I decided, I'm going to get an executive coach and kind of let me understand how others deal with this situation. And then once I made that active decision based on that moment of like those 15 minutes of walking until I decided, okay, I'm going to talk to Reboot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, could you share with me what did you ask help for? And perhaps what's the synthesis of what you've gone through? So if someone who's watching or they're listening to this, they're perhaps going, hey, I'm where he felt in 2015. Perhaps some of the tips. 2018, I apologize.
No worries.
Yeah.
So again, I go back to I had these phantom vibrations of my phone, the palpitations based on, that's the wild part. Yeah, you have phantom vibrations, the phantom vibrations of the phone that are not actually happening. And then you have palpitations based on the phantom vibrations.
And it's so real.
For me, it's, and you feel them. You feel them physically. Therefore, they become real, right? Even though it's an thing you're imagining. If you're in a situation where you're kind of going through something, maybe not exactly like that, but something that triggers a fight or flight response. If you are dreading talking to a customer or colleague or whatever it is, if you're dreading having to discipline someone on your team because they've done something wrong that is contrary to what you guys agreed on, if you're having any of these challenges, you just feel emotionally blocked, or you're emotionally too, for me, I deal with challenges by blocking my emotions. Mm-hmm. I don't want to externalize my challenges. Some people externalize them too much. So if you're on a spectrum, if you're on the end of the spectrum where you don't want to be, you just need to kind of come to a decision and say, okay, things are not working, and maybe I'm not able to deal with it by myself, and that's okay, right? That's kind of what I went through, because like we mentioned earlier, I had the time and the pause before to be able to deal with it myself, to read, to synthesize, and to get it done by myself. But at this point, I said, this challenge is bigger than me. And I realized that I wasn't alone, right? There's a $1 billion company that is built on people like myself, who have the same profile, the same background, who are much more successful than I am. And then,
it just takes a level of courage and clarity.
Yeah, I think one moment that I reflect back on is Ron Artest from the LA Lakers. The guy who changed his name to Meta World Peace. So I used to love basketball, and I heard his acceptance speech on one of those shows, and he said, I thank my psychologist. And if someone who's at that level needs help and who's performing, like NBA ring, championship, and he needs a psychologist, it's like, well, people need it in general, right? It's
because the thing is, it's the understanding that the psychologist is not a negative attribute. It's a positive attribute.
Correct, yeah. But and then again, there's a lot of cultural stuff that says, okay, you shouldn't be seeing someone and talking to someone about your feelings, about your thoughts, and it's fair enough. I kind of get the point of being tough and strong.
Sure.
But I'm tough and strong.
Yes.
I know that for sure.
Yes.
And when I worked 54 hours in a row, no sleep. I dealt with very challenging situations on the job, under duress, and I just managed to get through all of that. And then to have been able to, to be able to to realize that I am the same person that dealt with that very well, that, pulled off 120-hour work week, and to not being able to deal with what I'm dealing with now, I had to just come to a moment and say, this needs to change. Who I was before is not who I am today. You're always in motion again. You go back to you're always evolving. And then maybe you're not tooled for the current version of yourself.
Yes.
Right? So I wasn't tooled for it. And the funny thing is, my parents, when I was in oil and gas, when I went through the 120-hour work week, it was so bad I had to Google how to write a resignation letter. That's how ridiculous it was. It's like, I didn't even know how to express, I want to resign right now. But I managed to stick through it. But it was at that moment that my parents said, I didn't think you could get through that job. You were raised too soft. That's kind of what they said. And versus now, living in Dubai, very nice city, well-funded company, that's the glitz and the glamour.
Good.
Externally, things look very fabulous.
Yes.
Right? Everyone thinks you're doing well. And on the inside, you're like, I'm not doing that well though. Like, yeah, that thing is working.
Yes.
The way you see me, like, yo, you must be proud of yourself. You're very successful. It's like, nowhere near. Or at least that's not how I feel. And there's that dichotomy, like, am I crazy for thinking I'm not successful? Because everyone else thinks I am. But then again, there's that also the knowing, the feeling of knowing, I know I'm not where I need to be. And what people think I am versus what I believe I am and I feel I am are very different things. And the only source of truth is like what you feel, right? You can't really be motivated by anything that's external. Otherwise, you'll never be satisfied.
And it's really difficult because when you've got things that are going well, and in the public's eye, things are good, things are going well, but you don't feel that way. It requires that clarity and courage for you to go, I need to do something.
Exactly.
It's on you, right?
Yeah, and then also I think there's another thing that people don't mean. They mean to be. I'm trying to find the word for it, but they want to be nice. They want to be supportive. And as a consequence, when you try to open up about a challenge that you're facing, they try to reinforce the positive. It's like, all right, listen, I know about the positive side, but listen, these negative emotions, or maybe we don't want to label the emotion, but these challenging feelings that I have are very true. They ring true.
And it needs to be dealt with.
They feel true. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to deal with it. And then, you realize at some point, like, there's no one else.
Yeah.
Just like with any problem in life, whether it's at work or in your personal life, there's no one else that can fix it other than you, or who can start the process.
Yes.
So then you just have to kind of say, okay, I'm going to run with it. I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it, and I'll do what I can with it.
So you seeked help?
Yeah, I seeked help. I spoke to a company called Reboot, sent them my message. So the message kind of roughly summarized what we spoke about. Hey, I'm going through this and this and this and this. I'm having these shadow vibrations, these palpitations. I feel blocked. I can't express myself properly to my wife.
Am I the only one?
Well, I mean, I figured I wasn't, because they have a podcast too, right? And I was listening to it, and I realized, man, these guys are from big companies.
Yeah.
Like startups that I use, like a video startup that I use, JW Player. The founders of that massive company, they're using these guys.
Yes.
It's a team.
Yes.
And it's not just one, it's a bunch of them that are using this.
Top tennis players, top football players, top golfers, they all have psychologists.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Get inspired.
One of the questions that I get frequently asked is, Kev, how can I increase my motivation? We see great individuals, we see achievers, like many of the guests that I'm bringing on the show. They have the energy, they do so much, they're in a state of flow. How do they do it? Well, my team and I have released an article which I've made available on kevinabdulrahman.org/blog, the ultimate biohacking guide to increasing motivation. Or you can simply Google Kevin Increase Motivation and the article should pop up right at the top. It's absolutely free. Read it, and most important of all, take the bits and pieces that are relevant to you and apply it into your life to increase your motivation. I hope you find the article of value. If you do, feel free to leave your comments and also share it with your circle of friends. Again, you can Google it, Kevin Increase Motivation. It will be the first link that pops up, or on my website, kevinabdulrahman.org/blog.
Well,
In my capacity as a public speaking coach, I sometimes play psychologist. I'm not a doctor. But I find myself doing that because top people need a sounding board.
That's the thing, right? You need a thought partner sometimes. And you need someone to kind of say, hey, you're being hard on yourself. Or hey, you're kind of full of it right now. What you're saying is absolute nonsense. And you're just creating a reason for you to, you're finding a way to rationalize your behavior when you know, in fact, that there's nothing rational about what you've just said, right? So that's what an executive coach is for. It's kind of a person to come and say, hey, fine, I see the logic behind it, but what are the rooted, like what is your history? And how is that contributing to you feeling a certain emotion in this very moment, right? So, yeah, so I saw that help, and in that moment of pause, so much opportunity happened, right? And then obviously that became a recurring thing where once every 2 weeks, I'll be speaking to an executive coach, and I give myself that moment. But also, whenever I can, I record voice memos. So like one time, when I'm in Lebanon, I live in the south of Lebanon, and my family lives there at least. And when I'm driving down, it's about an hour and a half drive, usually an hour. I make it into 2 hours, and I'm just putting on the recording, and I'm just thinking through my thoughts, reflecting. What does it look like? What does negotiating with oneself mean? I love that term, negotiating with yourself. What do you want? What would you like? How do you want to get there? What is it that you have to give up in order to get what you want? Like you want to do all this stuff, but you can't. There's no way.
You need that time and space to have that conversation.
Exactly, man. So I have a good friend of mine who lives in Lebanon. We went to high school together, well, middle school and then high school. And then we kept in touch we kept in touch very little in university, but thereafter than we did. We had very, very different paths. So we were together in 8th grade. And then he failed that class, and then I was in, and then we kind of just got separated by virtue of being that age and kind of like not wanting to associate with someone. And then we, went to university, and then somehow our interests like converged, right? They converged, and we talk about all the challenges we go through. And then, so he's a sounding board of mine, and I meet him very rarely, unfortunately. I would love to meet him more often, but we meet up and we talk. And in 2018, in December 2018, so around 4 or 5 months after I spoke to Reboot, we were talking about, I'm like, okay, this year is going to be a very challenging year for me. And that's when I started negotiating with myself. That term came up. The reason it was going to be challenging was not because anything was going to go wrong, but we had just raised a massive round, right? So the expectations on my back got bigger. So there's no reason to celebrate a 7.7 million, it's about $6.2 million raise. But there's no reason you want to celebrate a $6.2 million raise. It's like, okay, now the expectations
it's just more
are much
responsibility.
bigger. Yeah, it's more responsibility, and now your agenda just got bigger, and you've rubber stamped that. You've rubber stamped the responsibility. So okay, we've raised the massive round. We are building this very big laundry factory, which is super cool. I mean, and then we were still trying to conceive what it would look like. We're still designing it, planning it. Some delays that are unexpected, and you want to minimize the delays, and you want to be able to take charge of that. At the same time, I was getting married in June. I was going to get married in June. And my wife was going to start making her move to Dubai, and I was going to get married. My wedding was in Paris, so I had to figure that out. And it's not easy to get married as a naturalized Canadian citizen in France. That was a very difficult experience. If anyone's going through it, I would love to help you. Okay, I would love to help you. I've already helped 2 friends of mine. They're very grateful because it's not easy, and it's not easy for a good cause. But at least
this is a premium service provided on the podcast.
Yeah. I've cracked it. I've cracked the code of getting married in France if you're a naturalized citizen of another country than the one you were born in. I'm excellent at it. But anyway, so going through all that and the amount of work and hiring a new team, scaling the team, organizing a department that had been so dependent on one person. Right? I was the thing that everything funneled to. That
you were the bottleneck.
I was the bottleneck, but also the distributor of information.
Right.
And I had to now decentralize that. We hired an operations director. We hired a product person, chief product officer. We had a CTO, which is a chief technology officer, and we were building departments. And then we needed to organize the company in a way that it was never organized before, and I had to accept that I had to cede control. So I knew in December, before all of that started happening, I knew I had a challenge. I had to I had to figure out how to be a better manager of people, because then it's very difficult to kind of let go of in startup lingo, we say letting go of your Legos. You don't want to let go of your Legos and then just kind of give it to someone else and watch them do what they want to do in their own method, because you want to be influencing them.
My Legos!
Yeah, you want to influence it to some degree, so I had to figure that out. Meanwhile, we're building this laundry. We are certainly understaffed to have built what we built, with the way we built it. I was worried about that laundry becoming a black hole of resources, which it turned out to be. I mean, we worried about it. We knew it was going to happen. A black hole of resources. Meanwhile, I had so much pain in my back, my neck, my glutes. I had so much pain, and I had to figure that out. And managing all that in December, I had to look forward and say, I have to manage all that, and I have to accept what I can do. And I decided in that moment. I have a hang pan that I love to play. I said, okay, I cannot play that anymore. I can't invest in learning it anymore. That's on the side. And then I love
price
reading.
Of admission. These are sacrifices.
Exactly, right? And I love reading, and I'm like, well, I have to accept right now that I cannot be a source of information consumption. I have to be a source of information output. So I let that go, and those were conscious choices. Meanwhile, okay, for my health issues, which were my priority, I started Pilates. So I did 60 sessions of Pilates in 3 months.
60.
I was really on it.
Yeah.
It helped me so much. At the same time, I was traveling to figure out this thing with my wedding in Lebanon, with my wedding in Paris. Meanwhile, we were organizing the wedding that was the big party in Lebanon. building this laundry factory, making sure that, and we were still growing as a business, right? Despite the investment, we were
Things
still
are good.
growing. Things are good.
Yeah.
And I had to invest in that. And, the gym, this, and then all the external parties that you have to manage and the internal parties that you're trying to guide. You're not, maybe I wasn't interfering, but I was guiding them towards a certain direction. And then you have me and my co-founder, talking to each other all the time. He's doing his own thing, I'm doing my own thing. And we were on the phone for I think when we did the math, we were on the phone with each other on average a day, an hour and a half a day, right?
More than what some people speak to their partners.
Right, yeah, but he is my partner, right? He's the second wedding that you have. You're married to your wife, and then you're married to your business partner, right? And it's a relationship that you have to consider, is this a relationship for life? And what does that look like? So, all that's going on, and I just have made a decision. On that drive down, I'm talking to myself, and I'm what does negotiating with myself look like? What are the sacrifices I need to do? What do I, how do I need to do it? And I'm just thinking through it out loud, because what else do I know? I don't have anything else to do. And it sounds insane. I don't even care now. But I wouldn't even admit it to anyone. And then once my wife actually got on my voice memos, she was looking for a song that I recorded when I was in Zanzibar. And she's like, you talk to yourself. I was like, yeah, I do. What are you going to do about it? She's like, nothing. It's just very
We're still
interesting.
married, right?
Yeah. More on that later about marriage and the things you get away with when you get married.
But you know what you're saying reminds me of Sarah Blakely, the billion-dollar founder of Spanx.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this or not, but part of her ritual, she actually lives close to her office. But part of her ritual, she would actually drive not directly to her office every morning. She created a fake routine.
Yeah.
Which allowed her, I think, to drive for 30 minutes or 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Fake drive, just in order for her to have her thoughts, because that's where she gets all her great thoughts before going to work.
I can imagine that, man. I can imagine that because people are like, oh, you live so close to the office. You live so far from your laundry, which is in Jabal Ali. And it's but I like the drive. I like the pause. Now I do. Because I'm driving there and, okay, today is a podcast day, but today is just no music, nothing. I'm thinking through things. And again, it's not like I always have to speak out loud to myself. Sometimes I haven't even spoken to myself while recording myself for a while, but sometimes you're going through these very challenging moments.
And you need the dialogue internally.
You need the dialogue, and you want to record it. Unfortunately, you can't record what's in your brain, right? So you speak, and then obviously there's something about saying it out loud that makes it different than when you just think through it in your brain. That's why a lot of people are iterative thinkers, and they need sounding boards in the form of people.
Yes.
But sometimes with these situations, I find that you can't really use people as a sounding board because they're just not fit for it. At the end of the day, only you can work through this.
It's just you and the windscreen.
Yeah, and you have so much more visibility. You see everything, and if you go talk to someone, you're going to present them with a very narrow view. And then anything they say, yeah, but there's this and there's that. When you're talking to yourself, you're working through it by yourself. So that was a very innovative thing that I did, in my opinion.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that's what I felt it was for me, yeah.
And for someone that's watching and they're listening and they're going, hey, I'm going through it or I need some help with it, what are some tips? So perhaps get some pause time, because you're creating these pauses in your life, right?
Yeah,
you're active about it.
They're scheduled. They're scheduled.
My drive to work.
Yeah, I'd say you're lucky if you have those and then take advantage of them. But for me, it's every other Tuesday between 6:30 and 7:30. That's my time. That's my moment for myself, and that's when I speak to my executive coach. And then in between, I do my prep work if needed, and I message him saying, hey, these are the things that I'm working through right now. And that's another hour, which is on a Friday morning usually. But find a way to give yourself these moments. I don't know how. There's no step-by-step playbook for it.
No, it's just the clarity.
Yeah,
it's the clarity and courage to do it.
Yeah,
you need to decide to do it.
Decide what you want and do what you want.
What other tips did they give you? Or did you learn from this process? So if this was, say, one tip, are there a couple of other things that, it's tangible? Let's say I'm going through this issue. What else can I do?
So I think if you're going through a hard time, like mentally speaking, with managing all the conflicting priorities, because that's what it is. Priorities that are conflicting based on how because of the method you've chosen to deal with them.
Yes. Regardless whether your company is doing $1 billion or you're bankrupt.
Yeah, you're a person.
Regardless.
You're a person. If you're a person that's going through that is not knowing how to manage their conflicting priorities, you need to just sit down and see whether you're fit or you're not fit, and you have to be honest with yourself. There's no other way. I mean, if you have a friend that's really honest, and I have a few friends of mine that I can openly talk to about this, and they're very blunt.
Yeah.
If you have that friend, seek that friend. Seek their guidance.
Or seek help.
Seek help.
Yeah.
See, at least on the way there, I had a bunch of friends of mine so my friend Ramzi, who was one of the first people that invested in Washmen, he's the one who pointed me to Reboot. He's like, hey man, I know you're going through this stuff that you're going through. Listen to this guy. He's really good. And that's how it started. Man,
that's good.
Yeah, it was that simple, right? It was just one friend who was like, hey, I know you're, conversation after conversation, he's hearing me out. He's going through his world, and he's like, okay, I've spoken to Jad about this. I know he's feeling a challenge. Few months later, this thing comes his way, and he's like, okay, Jad will benefit from this. Let me forward it to him.
Nice.
And then, so that's kind of where like having a support network around you is very good. But also kind of listening to other people and how they deal with it is the easiest way to learn.
Yeah.
And then you have, like you said, the courage to act on it. You can hear me speak all you want. It doesn't make a difference. Like what I tell you, everything that I've just said now is completely irrelevant if you don't want to seek help, or if you don't want to be active about it. You might empathize, you might sympathize, but if you don't want to do the work behind it, then yeah, it's just words, and it's an inspiring 5 minutes, and then you're gonna go on with your day, right?
Yeah.
Which is how almost everything works out generally.
I have so many questions for you, man. I don't even know where to go. Okay, like questions bombarding.
I feel the same way. I can't interrupt them.
I've got so many questions for you. Let's start with this one. You mentioned the importance of choosing a business partner.
Yeah.
So apart from the importance of choosing a life partner,
yeah,
which is important because if she or he are on the right wavelength, it makes your life a lot easier. How do you go about choosing your business partner? Like, how did you know? I'm asking this question and you can take it in any direction.
Yeah, fair enough.
How do you choose your business partner? How did you say yes to partnering up with Rami on Washmen?
Yeah.
Did you have a process of going, is this the right fit? Not necessarily as a business model, that's a different question, but more from a partner standpoint. Because this is something I've failed to at some point in my life ask the question.
Yeah.
And one of the businesses that we went into and it failed, had I asked this question and was courageous enough to go through the answering and process of just, does this work? Will it work? Is this relationship sustainable?
Yeah.
Do we bring the right thing to the table? Had I had the courage to go through it, we shouldn't have been in business. It would have saved me a lot of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no real easy way. Like I don't think I did things. Let's put it this way. I'll go back before I start talking too much. In life, generally, sometimes you make decisions through bad processes.
Yes.
And then they turn out to be, the outcome is positive.
Yes. With that experience.
And that's where luck comes in.
Yes.
Because there's a science, like you said, to choosing a business partner. There's a science to setting up an agreement with a business partner. So I'll talk more about that, which we haven't done. But generally, when companies say they want to invest in an early stage startup, they want to invest in the team. So my perspective was, what am I good at? Okay, I'm organized, I'm structured, and I'm a very hard worker. What's Rami good at? Rami's very creative, he's very fast, and he's a hustler, and not in the bad sense of the word, but he's the guy who's like iterating on thoughts so fast, and he iterates on his actions so fast, which is a skill set I didn't have. He's a negotiator. I don't like negotiating. I don't like talking money. Yeah, I suppose so, right? And I didn't like negotiating prices, and I don't like that, and I don't like putting pressure on people.
But that's his forte.
But he's so good at that.
Yeah.
So for me, that's step one. I say, okay, he's got complementary skills to mine, for sure, and I've got complementary skills to his. Those are very important. So I'm like, okay, that's step one. Step two is we've been friends since high school, since 10th grade. That's one thing. We live together, so I know what his real values are.
I was going to say
we live
value
together
system.
in a studio, in a small studio in Montreal.
You really quickly figure out the value system in a
Fair
studio.
enough, right? Fair enough. And he was just kind of visiting for a few months, but
clean up your washing. Pun intended.
no, but so he'd done that, and then I saw him work in university, and I saw his work ethic, which was very optimized. It was an optimized work ethic. So I saw how he worked.
Because you come across as an optimized person.
I am an optimized person.
Right.
Yeah, generally, I'm always trying to optimize. I'm not always optimal, but I'm optimizing in some way.
And I figured that out when I saw his email had superhuman.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, he's onto some optimizing shit that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Superhuman's is a game changer.
Yeah. Okay, so the fact that you had known each other for a while and you had lived through that studio experience gave you an insight about the person, right?
There's things, I don't want to get into because they're intimate, right? But
sure.
Rami and I are like really, really good friends. He's a friend for life.
Yes.
And in that moment, for me, regardless of whether you look at our personalities and then, the funny thing is, and I'm saying this because people who know me and Rami now, they're surprised to know that we're friends because we're very different.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you have a certain way you're seen in public, but then you know someone's values.
Yes.
You know what they're like deep down inside.
Yes.
And for me, I know his value system, I know his family, I know his brother. And for me, as a person, I'm working with this guy, right?
Yes.
I'm not concerned in any way, shape, or form.
Washmen is a project.
Yeah, Washmen is a project.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the friendship is irrelevant of the business. And then so kind of going into that, and it's like people told me, oh yeah, be ready to lose a friend because friends in business are always problematic. And I said, you know what? I don't agree with that because I don't lose friends. I don't care who that friend is. I don't lose friends unless the friendship should be lost, not because of disagreements, but because of a break of the trust system. And he's never broken that trust, ever, before Washmen or after Washmen. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, all right, you know what? That's what I thought about. Those were the things I considered before making the decision. And I just said, okay, let's bite the bullet and do it. The business made sense, obviously. When he approached me as an investor, I didn't agree with the thesis, but he seemed quite flexible and open to discussing why he thought I was wrong or why I thought he was wrong. And then eventually that became an invitation to, hey, why don't you come and help me build it? Instead of doing your MBA, this is an easier MBA than going to INSEAD or trying to go to the US.
Okay, so this would be great. So Rami came up with the idea?
Yeah, it was Rami's idea.
And he approached you, you're still in Canada, right?
I'm still in oil and gas in Canada, yeah. I'm in Calgary, Alberta.
Okay. And he's approaching you saying, hey, I have this business idea, would you like to invest?
Exactly.
Take us through that, and then how that transpired to you becoming a co-founder.
Yeah, so I mean, I want to finish that thought on the founder.
Please.
The decision-making process. So there's a book called The Founder's Dilemmas.
Okay.
So any founder who's thinking of starting a business, you should read that book because when I read it, I realized how lucky I was that so many of these things were addressed by the fact that we had a shared history that spanned a long time. And it wasn't just a professional history, but it was not a professional history, but it was a personal history. And a lot of the things had never been written down or agreed on, but because of that trust and the value system, they were covered, right? Obviously we didn't get everything right. There's a lot of things that, when you're in a relationship at work, you need to work through them, and you don't know how the person likes to work and they don't know how you like to work, and you butt heads and you work through it. But also the process of that happening, it was very informal for us, but it worked out. Versus I have friends in Iowa who are very good, the founders of Iowa, they're very good friends. But when I heard how they did it, I was like, wow, man, that is next level, right? They're good friends. They know each other. They worked with each other. They were in a startup together. And yet still, they took the time to say, okay, what would this look like? And then they wrote it down and they have a founder's agreement, which a lot of companies don't do, even though that's the best practice that's recommended, but they don't do it. And when I spoke to them, they're like, yeah, we went down into the very bits and pieces of the detail. And then it's kind of like I have a saying that I always say before, it's like you want to negotiate the divorce before the marriage.
Because an agreement is in place for when disagreements happen. That's when you come back to that.
Exactly.
To the founder's agreement.
What else is a contract?
Exactly.
It's like currently I respect you and you respect me. We have a shared goal in having a positive experience in this venture, and we're going towards a very positive outcome. However, we both know that things in life happen. And right now we have respect for each other, but these things might remove respect. So while we have respect for each other, how would you like to be perceived, and how would you like to deal with me if things go wrong, and how would I like to deal with you? Let's agree on that right now. Let's put that on paper. And let's agree to do that and only that. Because we've agreed that in advance, right? So that's we never did that, but again I go back to it's friendship. Like I know him well enough to believe very strongly that he will not do anything that will harm me, and he knows also that I will never do anything that harms him, personally or professionally. because we're building a professional relationship on the back of a personal relationship. And then obviously it becomes difficult. Sometimes you want to separate both, and it becomes very difficult. And that was a process on its own to separate work and personal life. And it's still not separate, but to some degree it's much better than it was before, because we were just living together in a 1-bedroom in Dubai, doing a startup, living together and working together all the time. And then eventually I moved out, and there was a separation from the move out, and he got married and all that. So you have that, and then the work relationship and the personal relationship separate. But we were lucky. I mean, it was just a lot of luck. So there was no real good decision-making process that I can share about what I did. But I can tell you in retrospect,
yes,
there's a lot of things that you should do, and you can look at that in the Founder's Dilemmas. It's a very long topic.
We're gonna put the link.
Page book, yeah.
We'll put in the book link in place in the show notes. What would be the top 3 guiding thoughts from that book, or something for a founder watching or listening to this that they should take into account, apart from read the book?
Okay, so it's a bit of so this is a tactical one.
Yes.
It's simple enough to say, how much work are you going to be doing, and how much work is your partner going to be doing? How are you compensated for that work? How are they compensated for that work? Should there be a life event that causes you to work less than they do? How should your compensation evolve? How should theirs evolve? What is your compensation in terms of money, in salary? What is your compensation in terms of equity? What is their compensation in terms of money and equity? Do you deserve more equity, or do they? Why? And how would that change if working circumstances change?
Yes.
That needs to be discussed. Because I mean, and there's
a lot of the common sense, but it's the nitty gritty.
Because people don't want to discuss it, because it's an awkward conversation.
Correct, 100%.
It's an awkward conversation. Sometimes you shouldn't be 50-50. We're not 50-50. Rami was the original founder. Rami quit his job in order to get the business started. He took a much bigger risk than I did.
Sure.
When I left oil and gas, I could have gone, I had my return flight booked. Like I said earlier, I left my car in the parking lot of the company I was working for, where it did more than a year, by the way, more than a year and a half. And I literally, all I had to do was give my old boss a call, and I had a job again. He didn't do that. He burnt his bridge, and he took his risk, and I hedged. There's a cost to that hedge. What is that cost? What do you think it should be? What does he think it should be? You have to discuss that.
What do you agree on? Yes.
Yeah, so we discussed that. He gave me a certain equity amount, and I'm like, I don't like that. I want more. And he's like, okay, fair enough. He's like, what would you like? This much. He's like, what about this much? I was like, okay, what about the terms? Like, board seat versus no board seat. I'm like, I want to be on the board. He's like, okay, you get a board seat. So, it's
so even though you hadn't formalized it, so to speak, you had actually covered it.
We were very pragmatic.
Yes.
We were very pragmatic in how we did it. Again, we go back to, we're friends. We've discussed business ideas before. And it was a business venture. We never knew if we would get into it. We never knew what it would look like. It's the first business I'm building myself, and it's the first business he's building. So there's a lot of learning there, right? But that's one main point of conversation that should be discussed. I think there's a lot of there's a need to formalize beyond the compensation and the conditions for compensation and changing compensation. There's a need to formalize decision making. We could have done a much better job on that, because there was a lot of points at which we clashed, not badly, but like clashed, like heated debates about certain decisions. And there needs to be formalized. What is the formal decision-making process? When you disagree, what does disagreement look like? How is a disagreement resolved?
Yes.
In what situation should someone be able to call a trump card? In what situation should they be able to veto a decision? And in what situation should the CEO be able to say, I know we disagree, but right now since I'm the CEO and it's on my head, I'm going to make that call because we agreed that I'm CEO. And
then everyone, even though they don't have the same opinion, they need to follow suit in the same, to follow the vision.
Jeff Bezos says, disagree and commit, right? That's kind of one thing he wrote in a famous letter to investors about day one, always being in day one.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and then, so he wrote that famous letter, and then he kind of mentioned it, like, I disagree, but I commit. And in that situation, it should be known and understood and very clear to all partners that the CEO is the chosen leader, and it's pre-agreed upon, whether silently or clearly agreed on, like vocalized, And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it's silent or it's been discussed. On paper, that's the CEO. He's responsible for all the things that are good or bad in the business, right? And there needs to be some kind of empathy and respect for that position, but it also needs to be clarified from the beginning. So, I mean, there's a very good case in that book about Blogger, a company called Blogger, which was founded by Evan Williams, who then I think was part of the Twitter founding team,
That's
the Medium.com founder team. And he was talking about how he founded a business with his now ex-girlfriend about who was meant to be in control, and he wishes he discussed that. Chamath Palihapitiya, one of the early Facebook guys that took them to where they are today in terms of growth, discusses it in one of his, when he decided to wind down the operations of Social Capital, his VC firm. He says he wanted to be a benevolent dictator, and he had not discussed that. And he had tried to make it seem, because he wanted to be inclusive of others, because that's what he felt like deep down inside, that it was inclusive of others and everyone's opinion is valued and mattered. But at the end of the day, he called the shots. And he says, he's like, I
Sounds
wish.
like a Steve Jobs thing.
Yeah, fair enough. And then I don't know too much about that, about Steve Jobs, but I know that Chamath said, I should have been more clear about what I wanted, which is I wanted to be a benevolent dictator. I want to call the shots, and it's my decision, and I shouldn't have led people on to believe. And I'm paraphrasing what he said.
Sure.
And I could be wrong about some nuances there, but it's in his interview with Kara Swisher on Recode Decode. He's like, I should have been much more clear on what I wanted and how I wanted to operate the business. And every single company should be too. We never discussed that. And then the challenges that happen on the back of that is if you have people that don't read like I read, and I'm like, okay, you know what? This is the situation I'm in. I have to defer to that. I have to defer to that wisdom of saying, if it hasn't been discussed and if it's implicit, then you need to either go after renegotiate the agreement, or you need to respect it. And in my case, it was kind of like going back and say, okay, this decision I don't agree with. You really shouldn't be doing that. And then, but at the same time, say, okay, well, I respect the fact that at the end of the day, it's his vision, right? It's the CEO's vision. He's driving it, and that's part of his job in terms of duties and day to day. Part of the driving of the business in a certain direction, that's their job. My job is, for example, making sure that we're not damaging items and that drivers are not getting into fatal accidents. That's my job. So I have to if he just needs to make sure that he helps me do mine, and I need to make sure that to help him to do his. Then when you grow your executive team and you become like 5 C-level people, then everyone that needs to go back and needs to be rediscussed and renegotiated. What is culture? What is attitude? What is harmony? What is synchronization? To what degree are we willing to be flexible amongst each other? To what degree are we willing to be flexible with our teams? Do we afford the same flexibility to each other that we will afford to our teams? Or do we give them more flexibility while we are less flexible? So I mean, all these things need to be discussed, and they're not clear. So that's the second thing.
Man, these are gems. These are absolute gems. You go back, rewatch it, and rewind and listen to this. These are absolute gems. Man, the points you're making here have cost me multi-million dollars and years of pain and suffering. This is just on a personal level. And then as a motivational speaker, I'm meeting with different folks from over 5 continents. We're talking about billions of dollars that's wasted money, emotions, negative feelings, failed businesses, all from just simple things that seem simple or difficult conversations we're not willing to have, man.
Yeah, and again, I wish it's like I wish to some degree it was my thoughts, but that's not what I'm good at. Again, like we said earlier,
the wisdom from others.
I'm able to kind of just take in the information from around and say, all right, I'm not doing well, and there's people that do this much better than I do. What are they doing better than me, and how can I implement that and integrate that into my lifestyle and into my decision-making process? And so that's the second thing that Noam Wasserman talks about. I mean, as we get older, the thing is, I think there's a very big challenging mentality that we all have, and that we get as we get older. We become much more resistant to change, and much more suggestible. Right.
Interesting.
I think so. Because when I was a kid, my parents were saying, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. I was like, nowhere near. I'm so much better than all my friends. A lot of them are degenerates. Like, I'm so good, and they're not going to affect me. Right? It's like, I used to wake up at 6 a.m. on Thursday. Thursdays in Saudi Arabia back then is the equivalent of Saturday in the US, and Fridays here now. It's the first day of the weekend. And I'll be up at 6 a.m. I'm done with my homework by 9. I'm playing football in organized tournaments at 10. and I'm done by 12, and I'm just moving. And
How
I'm
old
not
are you?
stopping. I was like 12, 13.
Okay.
I was waking up early,
Just
doing
your natural
my work.
thing.
It's a thing that, it's a work ethic that was instilled in me by my father. And I was looking around me and I was like, you know what? Man, these guys, my friends, are not even working. Like they do their homework like on the second day of the weekend before going to school. Meanwhile, I'm hanging out with my friends while they're working their asses off. And it's like, I looked at it that way and I said, okay, I'm so different. But then as I got older, you start going through your challenges. You have a lot of work and it becomes easier to defer to not peer pressure, but you become much more suggestible to, I don't know what the word is, but like to the common consensus, to the general consensus on a certain subject.
Yes.
And it becomes much more difficult to dig in. So now at the age we're in now, you need to become a person that's able to synthesize information, to be able to disconnect from the influences around you.
Yes.
Because some friendship, and then you need to make some tough decisions. Be like, okay, this friend I'm going to see him less. He's a great guy. He's a very good friend, but I don't want that kind of mentality, attitude, whatever it is in my life at the moment.
Sure.
And I want to see more of these people. And it might feel a bit selfish or very self-involved to seek their friendship, but at the end of the day, I really respect what they're doing, and I admire their approach, even though it's very different to mine, and I want to get to know them a bit better, right? So that's kind of the approach that I take when it comes to these topics. It's just I don't know any other way to learn. I've always been a social learner. Like I want to be with people. Even when I was doing math in university, if there's something I didn't understand, I would want to go learn from that person that one thing that I didn't understand. Some people would even though in high school I wouldn't do that because there was no one better than me in math in my high school. So I would have to sit down and study it myself all the time and repeat until I became good at it.
But you don't have that ego thing of, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not going to show. Like if you need help or you can do better, you're willing to go out there and get the help.
Of course. And
or seek knowledge.
That's when I was in high school. And then when I went to university, I kind of went into a shell. I was a big fish in a small pond. That's high school in Saudi Arabia. You go into McGill University, so many smart people, very big university, very big city, and you're a small fish in a big pond. And then so obviously there was some kind of challenges. I went in during that, and then I went into oil and gas to toughen up because I felt I was very soft. And then I realized, actually, you know what? I'm not that bad. It's just, I don't know why I felt so insignificant for 4 years of my life. And then that platform allowed me to start my job here. So kind of two things that we discuss about, you ask for 3 tips. I don't have the third one on the top of mind, but that's kind of it, man. It's like you have to choose, you have to be very cognizant and aware of the decisions you're making on a day-to-day basis, especially if they're lifelong decisions. Because a business is your life's work. It should be your life's work at least.
Sure.
And if it's not, then choose what your life's work is going to be and keep your business and be treated very, not strategically, but very technically.
But what you're saying in terms of approach of having the tough discussions of, having the clarity of who does what, this applies not only just in business. This applies in sports. It applies at home. It applies with your kids. It applies with your brothers.
Yeah.
It applies to life. You can actually have a better life, achieve a better outcome in whatever it is that you do if you're willing to have, these tough discussions or having that clarity. Hey, buddy, if in this podcast, I'm going to do my part, which is call the guests I like, invite the guests, have a conversation with them. If we're doing this, you are handling the recording. You're handling the editor part. You're handling the sponsorship parts, or get somebody else to do it. And having that clarity.
And here's how I expect you to show up to work, and here's the minimum hours I expect you to put in. And if you want to be flexible and you don't want to work from this hour to this hour, then these are the deadlines, and we respect the deadlines. And then you want me to be available to answer your questions, but I don't want to be available between the hours of 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. and I'll only deal with you in the morning between this hour and this hour.
Yeah.
And if you want to message me, you don't reach me by WhatsApp, you reach me by email. And if it's an emergency, you reach me by my personal phone number or on my house number. And then you work within those parameters, and what are the parameters that you want me to work within for you? That's it.
This is masterclass in
That's
clarity
it.
of communication.
Yeah,
clarity of
that's
communication, right? Because how you communicate, say, in this case with your co-founder, will also translate to how you communicate internally, right?
Yeah, and it's not just with my co-founder; it's with the company.
Yeah,
I'm known to be difficult. It's funny. It's like I don't want to use the word, but I'm known to be very difficult. And people are just don't be too annoying about it. It's like, listen, I'm not being too annoying. The only way Yeah, the only way I can show up to work at 8 in the morning and leave every single day at 7:30 to 8 p.m. while going to the gym, while reading, while doing a good job, and not just being a manager and being a doer, the only way I can do that is because I've decided that I must control the way my time is demanded. Because everyone is going to make demands on your time. Your wife makes demands on your time. Your colleagues make demands on your time. Sometimes they're professional demands. Sometimes they're personal demands, like just, hey, look at this article, it's funny. Sometimes your colleagues want to bounce ideas off of you, but sometimes they want your help with something. It's like, listen, guys, this is how I will communicate. During work hours, this is my communication method. After work hours, this is my communication method. If I don't respond to this method, this is how you reach me. And if you don't reach me here, then this is my house number, and it's open, and it's right next to my bed between these hours in the middle of the night in case of an emergency. And if you can't reach me, then you have my wife's number. And it's like, okay, guys, I've just given you 6 ways of reaching me, and then very clear ways. And then if I don't answer, then something's terribly happened, and please escalate to my parents, right? Like, find a way to reach out with my parents. But these are all the ways that you can reach me, and it's very clear. And if you really need my attention, respect the method of communication I've given you. And obviously, I didn't mean it as a joke, but I'm like, if you reach out to me on my personal number on a weekend for work and it's not urgent, I'm blocking you.
Yep.
Like, and then that's your fault.
I've done that, absolutely.
Right, and you're being blocked, and that's it. And no one has done it. But it's like, it almost feels ridiculous to want to put that line. But I always go back to, I was in Schlumberger, I was in oil and gas, I was going through the toughest, up until today, the toughest moment of my career.
Get inspired.
Imagine if you could present yourself, your thoughts, and your ideas with clarity and confidence. Imagine if you could speak to influence and impact. Imagine if you could communicate like a commanding and charismatic leader. Well, you can, given the right information and the investment of effort from your end. How do I know that? As a public speaking coach, I work with CEOs, world leaders, and presidents. And when they hire me, they expect nothing short of results. And over the years, it's been 2 decades now, 2 challenges have risen for me being unable to help the majority of people. I'm usually on a plane, with the majority of my time being booked a good year or 2 in advance. And my one-on-one session to work with someone in person generally starts at $20,000. So we solved the problem by making my public speaking course available for you online. Everything that I teach my clients when I'm working one-on-one, thoughts, tips, strategies, how to do things, all on video, all sequenced in the right order for you to be able to watch, rewatch, practice, and refine your presentation, your speaking, and your overall communication skills. And guess what? You will get results. Now, you can have this course not for the $20,000 that my clients pay me when we work one-on-one. You can have it for $997. That's right, just $997. You might be thinking, well, why are you offering something that you charge $20,000 for $997? It's simple, because those who want to work with me one-on-one will still hire me. But for many whom I might be out of their budget, this is a great way to develop their communication skills, to cut through the noise, to rise above the rest, and to beat their competition. If you're serious about wanting to develop your skills, to be able to present your thoughts, your ideas, and yourself with clarity and confidence, to be able to speak, to influence and impact, and to communicate like a confident and charismatic leader, then this course is for you. Go on to kevinabdulrahman.org/course and get started today.
The amount of input to work needed versus the amount of output to work that was demanded. I was doing crazy hours. Like, I was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a day for a solid 3-4 months. The amount of anxiety my body built up in those months was outrageous. But I remember one thing, because I was struggling with one of my teams. I had 2 teams and 2 different projects. I remember reading Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And I didn't even read it book to book. I got the thing I wanted, and I put it down. I'm like, I'll read this again some other time. But it was something along the lines of, if you want to be a general or a commander, then the consequences, then you must make your demands very clear, your expectations very clear, and you must define how good behavior will be rewarded, and you must define how bad behavior will be punished. And so long as you can clarify that, and then correctly follow up on what you threatened to do or what you've promised to do, in the case of something positive or negative, what you've promised to do, then in those situations, you prove yourself as a worthy leader. That even if you do something that hurts someone's prospects of development, they will still respect you for having been clear about how you deal with situations, and then clear on about how you follow up, and they trust you because you stuck to your word, even though it was counter to what's beneficial to them. And I took that advice because I had a colleague of mine that told me, hey, you're too soft with the girls and you're too hard on the guys. And she was a girl. She's like, you're too soft with this girl. You should be much harder on her. And then she's like, you're going to create politics in any department you manage. So, okay, Mesa, thank you. I appreciate that. I take that to heart because I knew it was true. Right? It's like I'm raised by my mother. I love my mom. I have 2 sisters. I just don't know. And you know, my mom scolded me for being very harsh on my sister. So I kind of just regulated on the other direction, and I didn't know how to have a tough conversation with a woman who was reporting to me. So I was very, very nice, but it needed a bit of firmness, right? So on the back of that, I didn't have the tools for it. So I'm like, okay, so since I don't know how to emotionally do this without sounding awkward and bizarre, what is the right way to go back to the root of it all, and how do I set it up from the beginning?
Correctly, yes.
So that I don't have to come in right now and do it right now.
Yes.
Right? So how do I do it at the beginning from the top? Because then if I come in the middle right now, it just becomes very awkward. So then I go back to everyone and I say, okay, guys, this is what I expect. This is how it will be done. If you don't do this, then you're not, you don't get the benefit from going to the field, which means they don't get bonus, because we used to get daily rates of bonus. And then it became very clear to that team, and then we went with it, right? So again, it's
setting the foundation. You're setting the pace as a leader.
Yeah.
Because if you
and
just...
it's weird, man. It seems so easy and it seems so straightforward, but then again, and even though I know it, sometimes we kind of lose track of it. Right now, I'll tell you very honestly, when I look at our management team, it's like we need a bit of that.
Sure.
And now we were going to go through that again. And the thing is, it's not a one-time conversation.
No,
it's a recurring
constant
conversation. It's resynchronization.
Yeah.
Resynchronization. And I think the challenge with that is people don't want to do it, not because because it makes them face a very harsh reality. Is, well, if I'm all right now and I've been doing things a certain way all my life, then if I really want to change, then does that invalidate everything I've done before? And that's scary. And that's why we don't take pause. That's why we don't stop. That's why we don't want to seek help, because there's a fear that coming to grips with where we are today might invalidate our self-perception
of everything we've done
historically.
Yeah.
Right, and we are historical creatures. We look, we hope for a future, we work for a future, and we base it on everything we've done before, and that's kind of where the dichotomy is. And then the more history you have, the more difficult it is to change your behavior, because you have inertia.
Yes. You
have a narrative you're telling yourself that's stopping you. Right. What's the narrative? And you're telling yourself a narrative that has held true for so many, decades.
That's right.
Now my narrative is 2 decades old.
Yeah.
Since I've been 11, there's been a narrative. The chubby kid from 11 to 14, then the kid that lost weight at 14 to 17 and became super good looking between that age, and then the guy who started balding at the age of 17 and 18, and then felt super awkward because he was, I only got 3 years of being, attractive to women, and now I feel so awkward about myself, and I felt so good, and then you get to 21.
And then balding became cool.
Right. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it looks good on my head. So.
It does.
Yeah, so I mean, I got lucky that my head is shaped in a certain way. But, you're going through that, and then that's the narrative. And it's like, well, I was really good in high school, but then I was terrible in university. And then I worked really I worked very hard at Schlumberger and oil and gas, but some of my colleagues didn't like me. And I know some of what they said, until today rings true. And why did they like that guy more than... Blah, 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 blah. That's the narrative. That's the story that's playing over and over. Imagine you have 30, 40 years of that. I mean, thank God I don't yet, but if you're not fixing the narrative as you go along, the narrative gets very toxic, right? Because it's like there's weeds in your mind, right? And you need to do some gardening.
Like a garden,
You need to just do some gardening.
And it's constant.
Yeah.
Ever constant. You know, since we mentioned Sam Altman and Y Combinator, they made the concept of having two co-founders popular. I mean, these days I travel a lot. I work with a lot of VCs and private equities, and it seems to be a common thing where they like to make investments in companies with two co-founders. But it was Y Combinators that really made it popular. They demanded a co-founder. Like they wouldn't invest in you if you were on your own. Like there were many cases where they said, "We will invest. Go get a co-founder."
Exactly. My friend got that.
What's the reason for that? Perhaps using your friend as an example. Or what's your thought on it? What's your...
Get inspired.
You know this by now, that we are the #1 YouTube show / podcast that's coming out of the Middle East from Dubai. If you like the idea of having your brand reach at least 1 million eyeballs per episode, then feel free to reach out to my office on kevinabdulrahman.org. Without further delay, let's continue this great conversation.
I think it's a very big undertaking to build an organization by yourself. That's the first one. The second one is, once you've been the benevolent dictator for so long, then being able to bring in someone and cede control of a certain department you were running is difficult. I mean, these are my thoughts, yeah?
I told you, put the Lego back.
And it's that inertia. Yeah. It's the narrative of the organization, because every single organization has a narrative. It has a story. And that story has an arc. And if the majority of the arc of the history of that story is that one person has been in charge, introducing another character in a certain department is very difficult. And you're not even fighting against personalities at that point. You're fighting against organisms.
Yes.
Right. So one of the most interesting books I've read is called Mastery. I think it's George Leonard. I read this in university, like a long time ago.
This is not the Mastery by the same guy who
It's not Rob Greene. It's not Rob Greene. Yeah, it's a different one. That one, it's a short book, and it just talks about a bunch of topics around the process of mastering something.
Yes.
And
similar to Josh Kaufman?
I'm not sure.
Where he talks about mastering things. That's
This-
different. Right? That's art of learning. Okay.
Yeah. So there's nothing tactical about this book, Mastery, that I've read. It was about how he mastered Aikido, and how the practice of Aikido taught him how to how to learn deeply. And he talks about this process, which everyone should be thinking about. It's called homeostasis. It's at any single point in time, an organism, you may introduce a foreign organism or a foreign entity into an organism. The organism will try everything it can to fight that entity until it goes back to the way it is.
Yes.
It needs to go back to its steady state.
Yes.
Right? So when you've been one leader, one manager in a company, and you've introduced more, it's almost as if structurally you'll be fighting for the ability to go back down to only to one leader.
Like your body fighting off a virus.
Pretty much, but that's where homeostasis comes from.
That's right.
It's when you introduce a foreign object and then your body is fighting. The organism is fighting that foreign object. Obviously, it doesn't apply here, but it's like, just imagine it from the world of stretching your reality, learning a new habit. You don't go to the gym, and now you need to go to the gym. For me, what I've learned is if I want to go to the gym, I do regularly. But when I learned that Pilates thing we were discussing earlier, I went there one day, and then I stopped for a week, and then after that, I went there another time, 2 days in a row, and then I stopped, and then I said, okay, now that my body's adapted, the best way for me to build a habit around doing Pilates for so long is to go there 4 or 5 times a week, every week, book in advance, and then you lose it so then there's the benefit of the fact that structurally, if you don't cancel within 12 hours, you lose your class, you lose your money, and you don't want to lose your money.
Of course you
That
don't.
was a very good one that he did, the teacher did. Find a good teacher. He was a very good teacher. I love the fact that he was a good teacher. I know that I want to learn from people I look up to. I mean, that's kind of a recurring theme of this conversation. I looked at that teacher. I liked him. I liked the way he taught. I liked the way he was honest and blunt, but yet still caring, and very detail oriented. And at the same time, I liked the fact that he took interest in helping me develop because he knew my challenges, right? So that's the one part of the equation taken care of. The community side of it. The same faces in class that are coming and learning, and we're all learning together. That matters to me. Second part is immersion and consistency. 4 days a week, even if I'm in pain, it doesn't matter. Even if I just need to show up, and then the rest will take care of itself. So I showed up. What else, man? So that's kind of how I did the Pilates thing. I just decided that I need to learn. I needed to make sure that I immerse myself. And despite everything, all the excuses
Yes.
that I could have come up with in order to not go to class, it doesn't matter. I had to go to class, right? And it's because I knew that the pull to not go, the resistance that was there,
Yes.
regardless of whether it was justified or not justified, irrelevant, because it was justified many times. You can't give in because your mind cannot distinguish between a justified reason or an unjustified reason. It just learns the behavior and it reinforces the behavior.
Yes.
So even if it's justified the first time, the second time you'll find a way to rationalize it. So that's the homeostasis. That's where I'm pushing in one direction, and then my behavior and my habits of how I managed my time in this situation before would cloud my judgment. So I said, there's no judgment here. I'm committed, I'm going.
I gotta go. Even if my sessions are suboptimal, I gotta go.
Even if
It's a
it
habit.
means I have to drive 40 minutes from Jabal Ali back to downtown and then go to class, shower, and go back to Jabal Ali, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half commitment.
Yes.
I'm doing it because I've committed to this subject.
Yeah. And then after a time, that becomes the new homeostasis.
Yeah, and then once it becomes a habit, and then you can't imagine not going, then you can be like, okay, you have to be. Then you're gonna miss classes eventually, and then you're gonna have to be soft on yourself, and you can't be harsh on yourself. And that's that's the arc, right? So that's homeostasis. So going back to being in a startup, right now we were a 2 co-founder team. We're still only 2 co-founders, but now we have multiple people on the C-level. And it's like, okay, well, how do we adjust the way we communicate in order to not exclude them? Because we had a CTO in the beginning who told us when he left, he's like, I feel like you guys excluded me from the conversation. It was always me and Rami, because we were very good friends. We were going for lunch together and he's not with us. We used to bring food from home and we were 2 bachelors, never eating at home, right? So that was a structural reason, but at the same time, we never, even though he was C-level, we never allowed him into the management team. He was just a C-level person that was treated like a doer. And obviously that left him completely disempowered and disenchanted with work. So I imagine that one of the reasons would be that you want to have a sounding board, you want to have less dependency on a single person in the company, so it's a very practical thing. And then you want, for the long-term viability of your business, it's generally better if you build with more than one person. So I mean, that's my theory.
That's a good one.
And I wonder what they say.
Yeah. You touched on community, and that was pretty much the first thought that we had when you came in. The fact that we don't realize how powerful community, what the role community plays in our success. What's your take on it? We take it as a given. We kind of know the community is important, the power of the people around us, but we don't realize that it's really a driver that helps us.
Yeah.
Have you created your own community, or is this something you're actively working on, or do you go seeking for communities?
Well, I think I need to do more work on that front for sure. I mean, I've started to kind of build a network of friends and people that I like to see, that I enjoy being with, where I feel like I belong at least, or at least I have these friendships. When you're young, it's very easy, and then you get busy with work, and then sometimes you just kind of develop these friendships where you're like, it's cool and you have fun together and stuff, but you don't really feel anything, like, you don't feel a deep connection. In my case, being in Dubai, I have a lot of friends from high school, a lot of friends from university, and I have that feeling of belonging, but I just wasn't seeing them. So now, because I was so busy with work, so now I've just chosen to prioritize social time. Because it's easy to think it's not important. It's like, oh, it's just socializing. I need to work.
All right.
And
even when you mentioned pausing,
Yeah.
it's very contradicting to the world we live in today, which is all about hustling.
Yeah, hustle.
Gotta hustle, gotta make it happen.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just,
when
it's
you work
2020,
out,
baby, gotta go.
You get the gains when you have the rest.
Yeah.
When you get off it for like a week or 2 and then get back.
But that
It's-
takes it
it's
to the next
amazing.
level of thinking.
It's amazing how that happens. Because I have a personal trainer now because I had so many back issues. Pilates solved so much of them, but then it got to a point where I'm like, okay, there's something else. And we worked together for like 6 weeks, and then I took a week off. And then in that week, I came back so much stronger,
Yeah.
without any pain anymore.
Counterintuitive.
All it took is 1 week of a break, and then my body just re-regulated. My muscles probably healed, and then I had no pain since then. Like no pain. I wake up out of bed in the office within 30 minutes. Before I needed like an hour just to lubricate enough to be able to get in the car without bending too much.
Oh,
It was
right.
so bad. Yeah, it's just rest really matters. And then when it comes to work, I guess it's not too different, right? Being able to stop, the being able to not measure not your life, but not measuring yourself and your. I guess the way I would use it is we're obsessed with productivity, with production, with efficiency, and being able to not measure yourself or the success of your day or of your life's journey by how productive you've been this week, this day, or whatever, and being able to just take a moment and rest from all that with friends and realize that there's a need to be social, there's a need to have a group of friends around you that you value, to be with family, to have conversations with family and friends. That's something that's easy to deprioritize because it doesn't seem like it's important until you realize that having a support network around you of good friends and family is really critical, right? So you need to invest in that.
But that's,
in my case, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's easy though. From an outsider's perspective, it's easy for me to go, well, it's easy for Jad to say this because he's got a company that's, they're doing 500,000 pieces a month. They've got all these customers, close to 100,000 customers. They've just got, $7.8 million in funding. Things are great. They're on the up and up. Now he's talking about chilling with friends and family members. When we had that chat with Faraz Al-Masadi, he's one of the top real estate players here in Dubai.
Fan Properties?
Yes, Fan Properties.
They're doing well.
Yeah, doing extremely well. And a good friend. And he talks about prioritizing his family and his time for himself and so forth. But this is now.
I don't know him personally, but I hear he works a lot.
He works a lot, but he's making priority for his family today. He goes 10 years ago. That wasn't the case. He was all in, like all focus. It was all work. It was boom.
Fair enough. It's easy to say that for people to give us an excuse for saying, okay, now that you guys have made it, or
now you've got time to hang out with friends.
Have made it. Right. Now you guys have time to have friends.
Whereas here I'm at the idea stage.
Yeah.
I don't have funding.
But I'll tell you about a guy who's done better than any of us combined.
Yeah.
Jason Friedman from Basecamp. 37. I think it was called 37 Signals before. It's a company that if you read how this company's built, it just puts us all to shame. He's like, speed is important, but it's not, it's not do or death. This is important, but it's not do or death. This is important, but it's all these things are, yes, important. They're critical, and you need to do them. But it's like, choose what you need to do very well, do that very well. What you can't do very well, do that later. That's another approach. And it's like, okay, fair enough. There's so many different competing ideologies of how to build organizations. The easiest and most attractive one is the one that we all subscribe to generally as entrepreneurs and founders in a venture capital funded world, or in a very monetary driven world, such as real estate. It is all money. It is, and you are fighting for the deal because one person might work 3 more hours or 4 more hours extra than you.
Gets it.
And then he'll get the deal. You are working in a fight or flight mode, right? That's a fact. But then you could also make a decision to cede a bit of control of your organization, fund someone, allow someone to make very good gains by allowing them to leverage their effort by giving them a share of your corporation that is significant enough for them to work like they own it the same way you work like you own it. That's a choice we could have made. And then you can say, oh yeah, but these people don't exist. Man, they exist.
Yes.
And there's people who are much better workers than I am, much harder workers than I am, much more organized, and they're employees in companies.
Yes.
And they shouldn't be, and they deserve to be owners, but they don't know how to take the risk of starting a company. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I would have never started this by myself. But I leverage my friend's experience and his ability to have that drive and that hustle to build a business. Like, I knew what I was getting myself into. Now, can I go in and start another company? I do have the self-belief that I am able to.
You honed your skill along the way.
I honed my skill and I realized what I am good at and what I'm not good at and what I can hire for. But the question is, if we wanted to do much better, could we have hired someone else? Could Firas have hired someone else that would have worked as much as he did? Hired? No. The answer is no. Could you have
bring in as a partner,
brought in someone as a partner with an equal share, with very clear conversations on the outcome, the distribution of wealth, the distribution of wealth and equity, the redistribution of wealth in terms of or profits, the general long-term strategy of the organization? Could you have done that? The answer is yes. Did he? No, because probably he didn't know. And now he knows better.
Yes.
And now he tells you, I prioritize my family. And I'm telling you, I want to prioritize my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my friends, me being able to travel more often. Even though we were talking earlier, I don't like to travel.
Yes.
I want to travel without feeling the burning need to be working. So what does that need? How do I, as Jad, with my personality, let myself travel? It's like, okay, I need to have someone that I can trust, that's holding fort. So I need to hire someone that can hold fort. And that might mean that my compensation cannot be the same as what it was before. It might have to become less. Do I accept that for myself? Again, I'm okay with it. But do you? Maybe you don't. And if you don't, then you choose, deal with the consequences of it. My father-in-law said something amazing. He's like, just deal with it. It's just so easy. He's like,
Here's a simple tip for life.
Yeah,
just deal with it.
Just deal with it. He's like, Lebanon. So there's a banking situation in Lebanon. People can't get their money out, and he's in private equity. So he's dealt with it. And then I was calling him, and he's like, listen, there's no way around it. Just deal with it. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, man, you just you have all these things, all of options, and you just have to find the options and you deal with it. And then it's so simple, and it's so unhelpful. It seems so unhelpful because there's no strategy. But it's like the way you deal with it and the way I deal with it are very different. Our givens are different. The amount of money I manage and the amount of money you manage are very different. My need for the capital is very different than the need for your capital. He's dealt with it, and he's like, now you need to deal with it, whatever that looks like. Whether you negotiate something with the bank, whether you're willing to lose some money, whatever it is. Maybe you need to raise more money. I don't know, but you deal with it.
He sounds like a very wise man.
I mean, he's very to the point, right? He's very to the point.
What have you learned from him?
So we dealt with it. We're okay now, but again, it's one of those things where it's like there was a scare for a moment, and I'm losing my mind. I'm like, are we okay? And the funny thing is, he just deal with it. And he was calm, and everything was okay. And maybe my scare was not justified, right? So maybe I overreacted. And in his world, it's like, hey, just deal with it. And then the scare is part of dealing with it, and then the reality that nothing was bad, you just deal with it.
Yeah.
I'd say I've learned from him just the need to be very to the point and succinct, brief, to the point, concise. You want this or you want that? If you want to be here, you need this. Okay, that's it. It's like his conditions are very clear. Like, he's the boss and he has certain rules that he wants the company to run by, and they're not negotiable. They're his rules, and then that's it. It's so simple. In his mind, it seems so simple, right? So,
but I work with great individuals from across different sectors, and one of the commonalities that I notice is, sure, they're hard worker beyond what most people realize. They work much harder than most people think. They're very disciplined. Their thought process, without a shadow of doubt, every single person at the top level in any field is neat.
It's clean, yeah.
Well said. Yeah, it's simple. It's along the lines of just deal with it.
Yeah.
They're calm under pressure. They're not running around like headless chickens. Like, the country has imposed a new policy that affects our 1,000 stores. Everyone's freaking out. The guy at the top, okay, it's a problem.
Yeah.
We got to deal with it.
A very good example of that is the Booking.com CEO. So I think Google had gone into travel, right? And then there's a debate raging online about the way Expedia dealt with it versus the way Booking.com dealt with it. And Booking.com said, okay, Google's going to do its thing. We can't be SEO. Clearly, we cannot be an SEO-dependent organization. So we need to just find a way to get people to our platform without SEO. Done. Clear. Versus the way Expedia dealt with it is like, no, that's unfair. It's like, well,
that's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah,
complaining about it.
It is unfair. That's accurate. But then you leave it to the regulators. You leave it to the regulators. In the meantime, until the regulators decide how to deal with it, you have to deal with it, right? It's a way to accept that you need to have self-determination.
It's on you. Yeah.
It's on you. And there's a lot of unfair business practices everywhere around you. And until you might feel they're unfair, but until they've been deemed unfair officially, they're just part of the game.
And even if it's unfair and the laws and whatever the judgment comes your way, you might be out of business by then.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at that point, right? It's kind of like you just didn't deal with it.
Speaking of things that are on you, let's talk about the car that's left at the Schlumberger car park.
All right.
Segue into the car park that was left.
So the story kind
tell us the story.
Kind of went like this. Okay, so I got a phone call from my friend to kind of just
Rami,
at Washmen at that point. He's like, would you like to join me? And I was like, give me a bit to think about it. I made my calls within a couple of days. I'm like, yeah, I'll join you. So within those few days, I had to go back to Edmonton where my car was parked, where I was living. I had
Was
to
it an
pack all
easy
my
decision
stuff.
for you to make because you were being overworked?
No. It wasn't. I wasn't overworked. The reason I decided to do that was I got a request to be transferred to Houston to be part of something called the Bravo Squad, which was a flying squad.
Sounds like the A team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was the A team. It was the A team.
It was
right?
okay.
It was the A team, and it was going to be a lot of difficult work to the point where even the VP of the organization at that point, the VP of my department of North America, messages like, "Hey guys, I know you guys have days off that are 1 week every 2 weeks, but you know we know that you guys know that we're going through a very difficult time, 2015 oil and gas downturn. A lot of you guys will have to work extra. Your days are guaranteed, but you won't be getting any days off, and you'll be traveling everywhere. And meantime, you'll be working out of Houston every now and then you'll be doing this something called OSC, which is online support, 2 real-time field operations. And then your boss, the person I would report to, would be an online support center person. It's like, well, operations support center person, sorry, OSC. And then I interviewed him and I talked to him. He had no idea what the field looked like. He had no idea what my job was like. He had no idea what emotional challenges you deal with.
And this is someone you have to report to.
I was meant to report to.
With zero understanding.
He had no understanding. He was a very good, calm guy. Yeah?
Sure.
He was very nice, well-spoken. He clearly knew that he didn't know, and he's the one who voiced it to me. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if we're such an important part and we're expected to do so much, how is the person I'm reporting to not even aware of what field operations look like? Effectively, my job was to go and eliminate the job that I was doing before by centralizing operations instead of having it decentralized that way. So at that point, it's like move to Houston. I didn't want to do that. The other option I had was stay in Edmonton or in Calgary. I wouldn't have minded doing that. The only thing is, oil and gas was going through a downturn. One of my colleagues he had quit. Another bunch of them had been laid off. One of my very good friends had moved to Vancouver, West Coast. The girl I was dating, or like kind of seeing, I guess at that point, I was very close to her, and she was laid off. So she was moving back to Toronto. And I think that to me was the toughest. That, along with my friend, the next one I'm mentioning, Andy and Bea, my friends there, they were living in the same house I used to crash at when I was in Calgary. They were moving to London in June. And then the last guy that was in the house, we called it the frat, it was just like a 3-story house. He was moving and buying his own house. And he was with his girlfriend, he was moving with his girlfriend. And to me, that was just like, okay, well,
things were happening.
3.5 years to 4 years of oil and gas to start having this. And I only had it for 1 year, this community, this feeling of belonging where I lived. And then that was just all going away, right? Everywhere. Like one guy quit, one guy left, the girl was laid off, my friends were moving to London, and the other guy was buying a house and moving in with his girlfriend. It's like just decimated. So it was okay, I'll do an MBA. And
Of course, the natural progression.
yeah.
There
Well,
it is.
I mean, right. I was stuck in oil and gas, and I wanted to do something else. I didn't know what it was, and then I just said, okay, and I'd been talking about doing my own business for a while. I was going to do my MBA. I was applying for my MBA. I was studying for my GMATs, and I had finished studying when I got this call to not invest, to become a partner. And it was an easy decision for me. So I was like, yeah, okay, sure. 2 days later, I said yes. Then I had to pack my bags in a day. I packed everything in a day. I put everything in my car, and I left to Edmonton, and I had booked my return flight. I booked a 2-way flight. So I went to Edmonton, I packed everything, and then I went to Montreal, where my family is, where I have a house now. I went to Montreal. I packed everything that I had in Montreal because I was living out of both places at the time. And then I flew back to Edmonton. I resigned. I typed up my letter.
How to resign on the same day?
So the way I quit was very cool. I quit in the best way I can imagine. I had watched James Bond in Casino Royale when he was on the boat. Okay, he was on the boat, and he just he was like in love with that girl that ended up betraying him or something. And then he just takes that laptop out and he types, "I hereby tender my resignation with immediate effect." And
I remember that scene.
That's all I typed. "Hello, to whom it may concern, I hereby tender my resignation with immediate effect. Signature, thank you." So that's what I did. And in Schlumberger, it's a common thing. It was a common joke to imagine all the ways you could quit that are very creative. And obviously that's not very creative, but
there's a whole community around this.
Yeah, there was a community around it because it's tough. When you're working 50 hours and your boss is stressed because he hasn't slept in so long and he's dealing with 7 operations like yours that are not going well. Meanwhile, he has headquarters calling him why did this screw break and cost us $17,000 on this offshore rig? He's dealing with that and he's kind of under duress and you're under duress. And you're like, you know what? I would just love to take these keys and throw them in the ocean and let's see what they're gonna do about it. You know what I mean?
I quit.
Yeah, I quit. Deal with it. You know, millions of dollars lost to the client. No one does that, you know. But it's kind of a moment of like,
this is how I'm gonna vent off.
Imagine what it would look like if, and then, you know, the person goes back and works 50 hours and doesn't say anything. But it's just one of those things of like, you know, the boss, you know,
fantasies.
You know, I want to screw the boss. You know, the boss can't tell me what to do, and then you go do what the boss said, right? It's exactly that. So for me, writing that letter was kind of a moment of saying, you know what, I'm done, I'm out. I don't even care about having a relationship with my boss. And when I did that, my boss was like, hey, is this final? I'm like, yeah. He's like, congrats, man. I didn't know. Like, do you want me to help in any way? I was like, what way can you help? He's like, you know, just, you can leave now if you want. You don't need to stay 2 weeks. He's like, I'm not, because I had a lot of days off. I had a lot of vacation days accrued.
That's
I'm
nice.
not going to keep you here 2 weeks. You can just leave whenever you want. We'll give you your final settlement and good for you. Just make sure you get your laptop back. Flew in, gave my laptop back, and then my car stayed there because I had to come to Dubai. I had booked my flight for May 11th, I think, at that point. May 10th, and I arrived here May 11th. So yeah, and then I left my car there. I was meant to go back and take it in October. I didn't go back in October. I pushed that, and I pushed it again and again. And I pushed it to February. When I came in February, the business was booming. So I went to Canada in February to just kind of do my final paperwork and close my bank accounts and all that. And then the business was booming, and I didn't want to go to Edmonton, which is a 4-hour flight from Montreal. So I just said, you know what? I'll just leave it there. I'll come back for it later. And then that later never came. And a year, almost 2 years after I left it there, the car got towed away. And it had a bunch of books in the back and a bunch of clothes. I have no idea what else it had, but anyway, it's gone. Apparently it's been auctioned off or destroyed. I have no idea. So the car's gone. But it's worth it. It was worth it. I think so. My father doesn't think so.
Yeah.
Because you know, they put like, hey, do it. And I tried, you know, I called my friends like, hey, my keys are there. Can you go get it, move it, renew the registration, do this.
Everyone's living a busy life.
And everyone's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then I call back 1 week later, and I'm busy with Washmen here. And where's the keys? Oh man, I don't know where the keys are. I was like, oh damn, it's the only set left. there's no other set left. And so yeah, in the end, the car ended up being towed away, and that's that. I tried to take care of it. I tried to sell. I should have sold it. I had an offer for like $5,000. I was a bit too demanding, I guess. I didn't accept the sale for $5,000. It was worth $20,000. Someone lowballed me, knowing that
That just pissed you off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let it go for free.
Yeah, eventually, and then that's what happened. Yeah, I should have sold it. Because now I just feel bad because it's an open-ended loop. But in retrospect, it's like I didn't know how else to deal with that situation. Yeah, I did what I did. I did what I could with what I had.
Fair enough.
And then, you know.
Maybe one day you'll have a Sylvester Stallone moment and go back and
next
find
time
the car.
I won't let that happen.
Perhaps we could get some thoughts, tips, and advice from the growth you've had at Washmen. You guys are working together, you and Rami,
Yeah.
at an idea stage at this point, right? And there are a lot of folks who have great ideas, or maybe they've set up their founding team and they're going, okay, let's go from idea to execution to reality. First stop, we need cash.
Yeah.
How did you guys go about getting that 27,500 in terms of your initial? That was your initial seed capital,
Yeah.
right?
So I wasn't there at that point. That was when Rami did the first round.
Okay.
And then they kind of made him get a co-founder. That's why I was invited on board, right?
Right.
But I know the story because Ramzi Ismail, who worked at Flat Six Labs back then, works now in Techstars. Saw Rami. He saw the hustle. He appreciated the hustle and the drive and the hunger to be successful. And we managed to get into, like, Washmen got into the program. Rami got Washmen into the program 2 weeks in or 3 weeks into the actual program.
Okay.
And it was at that point that I was invited to join as a partner. And they required to have they didn't really require, but they told them, you need a co-founder, get someone you can trust. And
So similar to the Y Combinator requirement.
Yeah, pretty much,
Yeah.
right? And then so that money was given, and then we had to use it to build an MVP of the app. And then on the back of that, we had something that looked like it was working. It wasn't working. In hindsight, it was definitely not working, but it looked like it was.
Sure.
You know? When you don't know anything about
Everything
anything, when you don't know anything about anything, you have no idea what functional is and isn't. So, you know, we had something that looked like it worked. We had a team that looked attractive. We had friends that were willing to invest. It was 2015, oil and gas downturn. A lot of money going,
Being redirected.
It hadn't really hit, but a lot of money was being redirected into alternative investments. Startups were becoming a thing in the region, and we benefited from being a Flat Six Lab startups, having a very good team, having friends and family that were willing to invest, and that kind of that gave us a seed investment.
But how did you develop that? How did you develop a good team? Because these are challenges we face.
I mean, the team was just me and Rami at that point. Yeah?
Okay.
I mean, at the 27,000 dirham.
Yes.
Yeah, that was just me and Rami. There was no one else. I was customer service alone for a year and a half.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he was doing it too, but he was part-time customer service.
Sure.
Right, so it's like.
So you guys were CEOs, and what's wrong with your cufflinks? Sure, we will get to
exactly.
it.
Yeah. I was doing all of that for a year and a half until we hired. A year and a half, I guess. But 1 year of operations, I was customer service. The first half year, there was no operation. But yeah, it was rough.
We had a break, and the break was on the question that I asked about the growth. If you can take us through, the growth process once you had the initial funding. But in the meantime, I found out that he's doing intermittent fasting. I'd love to get your thoughts on what got you into intermittent fasting, what it means for you, what are the benefits. I think it's extremely powerful. Like I told you, it's helped me immensely. I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
From my perspective, remember we were saying earlier about optimizing?
Yes.
So it's not about, I'm not into this concept of biohacking. I don't really biohack anything. But in terms of realizing how my energy levels were progressing throughout the day, I realized that my challenge was always with having energy in the morning, and then I would get over that hump, and then I would have lunch, and then I would crash again.
Yeah.
And then so I just decided that I wanted to do something that, one, didn't give me a crash in the morning, because that's where I'm most productive. And the second thing, something that didn't give me a crash in the afternoon. So drawing on a lot of the things that I did while I was in oil and gas, I was even much more optimized back then than I am now. I was vegetarian 6 days a week when I was in oil and gas.
Okay.
Again, because we were sleeping very little. I didn't want to drink too much coffee. I was realizing it was giving me a lot of anxiety. So I just decided to be vegetarian 6 days a week back then. Mostly vegan too. I tried to avoid all dairy and all sugar also. And I remember how that felt. And I never had the peaks and troughs of energy in my energy levels. So that was one choice. The second choice is but I was still having my crashes in the morning after my blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, orange something smoothie I had every morning. It was great. I know it was healthy. Flaxseed, spirulina. I put all that.
Spinach in there. Yeah.
Spirulina, spinach. I did all of that, and it felt great. I mean, I was in great shape back then compared to now. But still, I would have that crash, right? It was just that spike in sugar levels. Even though they're good sugars, it was still sugar levels. So I decided I needed to do something different. I read about intermittent fasting. I said, hey, let me try it out. I tried it, and I realized that the main benefit it got me was focus in the morning. And then after that, I would have lunch, and then the lunch wouldn't be too big either. And that gave me the ability to just kind of sustain energy levels throughout the day. And that was critical for me to be able to work efficiently on a long part of the day. And I started this about 2 years ago now.
Okay.
So about 2 years ago today.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life, yeah. It's weird to eat in the morning, because some days I've worked out so hard the night before. I know I should eat, so I have a banana and I'm like, oh, this is weird, and then I can't eat until 4 or 5 p.m. My body just
kind of becomes a habit, right?
It becomes a habit, yeah. It's a thing you do, and then when you don't do it, it just feels like you've broken some rule, some unspoken rule.
My brother Rami, who's going to be watching this or listening to this, it's something I've recommended for him, because he's a switched-on businessman, and I told him, for your energy levels, for things that are important for you, you should try it, intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
What would be a tip you'd say give someone like him in terms of trying it out? What's your suggestion? Like for me, I told him, hey, just wake up in the morning, have black coffee. That takes out the craving.
Yeah. Okay, so tactical.
Eh?
He has implemented.
Yeah, but I'm talking about implementing it as a habit, not as I'm gonna go on it and then off it. But you've been doing it for 2 years.
You can't be on it and off it.
No, it's a way of life.
I love coffee.
A choice.
I love coffee.
Yeah.
I did the research on what is needed in order to push the craving for food.
I did that too.
One is habit. That's the first one. But also black coffee has it really helps because it defers hunger. But the problem is the second you put any sugar, any cream.
No, it has to be black.
Yeah, it has to be black. And then it also you can't drink too much of it, because then it shoots up your anxiety levels and your cortisol levels, and then that makes you hungry again. So you have to just have enough of it, just a little bit, a couple of times before you're ready to eat.
Yeah.
Because if you have too much coffee, then your cortisol levels shoot up, your stress levels go up, and then you need to eat something in order to address and lower the cortisol levels, right? It gets into a bad loop. So just basically have a bit of black coffee. If you like tea, have tea. I really like tea. And you can have such a variety of different teas with a variety of different flavors.
And you won't break the fast.
And you won't break the fast, right? I mean, try to avoid anything that has don't have anything that has sugar in it.
Sure.
But that's what I did. I mean, it wasn't difficult. I love coffee.
Yes.
But sometimes the hunger pangs that happen in the morning are difficult to deal with, especially the ones that are like at the top of your at the top of your belly, not really your stomach, but at the right here, right? The ones you feel right here at the top of the esophagus, I think, or bottom of the esophagus. I'm not sure what it is. The one you feel right here, that goes away after a few days.
Yeah.
You get it for the first week or so, and then it just completely goes away. But that's the tough one. That's the one you want to get rid of, because once you lose that, and you're fighting against that, once that's gone.
That's psychological?
I don't know. I have no idea, man. But it's just a thing that I observed, because I've gone on and off of it a few times. When I was in my wedding, for example, on my honeymoon, I intermittently fasted only the first few days.
Yep.
And then I stopped it because we were going on safaris and stuff, so I couldn't really fast the entire time. But then after, when I went back, I just felt it again. I'm like, I haven't felt this in a long time. Then it took me a week of being back in Dubai to get rid of it.
What I've also found to be helpful is it's kind of like working out. What you do, not just in the 1 hour at the gym, it's the 23 hours of relaxation, or taking care of yourself in terms of nutrition that has the maximum effect in terms of the 1 hour you put in at the gym. But what I found out is what I eat and how much I eat, and making sure that I consume all the good food in that window helps me with the fasting. So if I'm eating heaps of almond butter and I'm really making sure I'm satiated with oils and good carbs and bits and pieces, actually helps me. I'm just not hungry.
Yeah. I found that too, to be honest. I mean, when I started intermittent fasting, I was at 120 kilos. The crazy part is I came to Dubai, I was 93. So I mean, when part of this whole challenges that we talked about when I was in, the moment I was on Manam Khair and I realized, I'm like, I need help with this. It was obviously, there was a lot of health issues, but I was like, how did that happen? And the crazy part is, it happened over a summer and I don't even know when. I saw a photo before the summer and a photo after the summer. I'm like, what happened there?
Damn!
I'm like, what happened there? And there's like it's a black part of my story.
Wow.
A complete blackout back then.
That's huge, man.
It was huge. It must be really bad, right? 33% body weight increase. It's outrageous. It's really bad. So I managed to drop my weight from that 120 to 103 just by doing intermittent fasting without any dieting, without anything. And now I'm stuck at that level. And now I need to optimize what I'm eating. Obviously I'm going to the gym. I'm getting all these little things ironed out.
Sure.
But now it's a matter of, you need to change the way you eat. You need to change what you eat. And then I think the most important one about intermittent fasting, if you want to do it right, you need to have a routine.
Yes.
When it says you break your fast at 2 or 3, you break your fast at 2 or 3.
Yes.
And you give yourself that range and you do it. And you don't just push it, because when you do, then you get cravings. And the second you break your fast on anything, you start eating junk.
Yes.
Because your body needs to feed itself. And you've been starving it for a while, right? And when your body gets into that ketosis mentality, right, into the state of ketosis, where it's starting to burn off fat for energy, and you feed it a bit of carbs, it tries to switch back all the energy into carbs, and apparently, that's based on what I've read, and you start to eat a lot of carbs, whether they're useless or useful. Yeah. And then the quality of what you eat makes a huge difference on the viability of intermittent fasting.
Yeah, it's what you were saying is huge, because I've got friends, and I've seen a lot of top athletes or people who've got great bodies, talking about magazine cover kind of bodies. Every single one of them, what I notice in terms of pattern, preparedness. They're running their bodies like it's a business. Like
it's a schedule.
It's
on a schedule.
Like good CEO of a business. Like everything is proper. Meals, 7 days a week. Every single meal, 7 meals.
Yeah.
Or in that period, it's all thought out. It's all planned in advance. The day before, the night before, whatever it is. They're not arriving at it going, what am I doing now? No, they're running it like a business.
Predictability is a very important part of almost everything, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have you want to leave as little to chance as possible.
Yes.
I mean, that's part of the reason is Zuckerberg and Obama, right? They wear the same thing almost every day.
Yes.
They just don't want to think about it. They've already decided on what's being worn and they move on.
Man, we've 30 episodes. This has been uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah. Purely because of that. One of the things that we had in terms of communication at the beginning, if we're going to do this, I've got too much on my mind. If I'm going to do this, it's got to be simple. And when it came down to what I'm going to wear, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
Podcast, YouTube show, every time, t-shirt, cap, t-shirt, right down to sock and shoe.
Really?
No thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, every single one. Because I know it's going to come up. Don't you have clothes, Kev? No, I don't.
Yeah.
We're going to be having the merch soon as well. So.
Yeah, but that's
Now
the
you got the
concept.
opportunity to hear, man. You got to share it. So
Yeah.
no one's gonna ask.
I've said it a few times because for the trollers, we gotta
you
get
almost
trollers.
have to say it, right?
Yeah, trollers are like, this guy's can't he afford a suit? No, he can't.
Yeah.
There are things that we take or we don't consider unless we go through the experience. And I'm hoping people who can watch this or listen to this can learn by not having to bang their head against the wall. I've lost millions of dollars because I somehow or another chose to bang my head against the wall. And if I could go back and do it otherwise, I would learn from individuals like yourself today.
Yeah.
Save myself time. Because, say for example, you got your first investment. My next question would be, how did you grow? And you can answer them however way you like. How did you build your team? How did you get the second set of funding? So your Series A, which is, I think it was 400,000. Was that the first one?
Series A was
Undisclosed.
Undisclosed.
The one before that was 400,000.
You got it, yeah.
One of the questions a lot of people don't ask is when you're seeking or you have an idea or you have a business that's running and it's running out of runway, being your cash flow, you need money. Did you ask the question, who are we going to get the money from? Who is it acceptable from? Because these are now partners on the game.
Yeah. So I think they're very different topics, right? The topic of growth and the topic of funding.
Yes.
So which one would you like me to elaborate on? For me, they're all the same, right?
Both, you can tackle either or. So shall we start with growth?
I'll start with the growth because then that leads into funding.
Lovely.
Right? There's no funding without growth in our line of business. When we raised the $400,000, we had to be very cognizant and aware of how we were spending it. The best decision we made was to hire a senior developer, which eventually became our CTO. The main challenge was, like what I was saying earlier, is like we thought we had a thing in hand that looked like it was working, but it really wasn't. It was terrible. So we had built
this
an app.
This is your MVP, right?
Yeah, we built an app, we built an operations dashboard to run the app and the customer's experience. And then we just, we were purists. We were trying to build this app and get it on the app. The first thing that we learned, and we learned it the hard way, was, you know what, why are we launching an app? Let's launch it on a mobile website, m.washmen.com. That was the best idea we had. And what that allowed us to do, back then, iterating on apps was difficult. App Store reviews for Apple apps took about a week to 2 weeks before they get approved and released. Now it's down to 2 days.
That's right.
Right? So we're in a different environment back then. 2015 is not 2020. Very different world, very different operating principles for all the big tech companies, not as many frameworks. Technology choices were not clear. And then we had chosen a framework or like a language for our app called Meteor.js. And that was a risky choice that was made by the development shop that we hired, the programming company that we chose. And it didn't have a lot of support. And so what that meant was, by the community of developers, what that meant was there was a lot of issues we faced. We didn't know what these issues were. And it took a lot of time to figure them out and fix them. So we decided, okay, instead of doing that and then putting on an app and then shipping the app and taking 2 weeks for Apple to approve it, we launched it on m.washmen.com. You could have access through any browser, Apple or Android, Chrome or Safari. It didn't matter. It looked the same, and it was very quick, very easy, and we iterated very fast on it. And then we were able to take in feedback from customers and implement it immediately. Immediately. It was taking minutes. It was so important to be able to adjust based on the things we were hearing from customers.
Yeah.
And that gave us that speed of development, allowed us to grow much bigger, faster.
And at that point, I just want to go in terms of the point of how you were driving the company. At that point, you were app-based, or you thought we're running this is an online business, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's still an online business.
Yeah.
I mean, back then we were outsourcers. I mean, the interface between the customers never changed. It's always been online. We don't have any offline stores. We still don't have any offline stores. But at that point in time, it's like, okay, well, we have this app and we're having issues with the app, and but why is the business not starting? So we decided to launch it on web. And then that iteration was very useful. It allowed us to then go with an app that didn't need too much fixing. And then, once we got the business running and we were making money, we didn't really care anymore about the app, about launching the app. Now it's okay, let's launch the app when it's ready and we're confident with what we have. And we were very confident with it pretty early on, yeah? So we got, the business started off, the first month we made $4,000 in revenue. And then with the second month we made $10,000 in revenue. And
was this luck, or did you know what to expect going into it?
So we were man, you know, it was luck. And Rami is a hustler and he knew how to market. He was open to trying things out. He was not a purist. He didn't say, oh, my brand needs to be perceived in a certain way. And I didn't oppose anything he said, right? It's like, we need to go to market. We need to get our name out there. It's not like I need a branding agency and my ads need to be great. It was like, hey man, Photoshop, whatever, throw this thing on Facebook ads, throw some money behind Facebook ads.
I remember seeing your ads.
2015 is not 2020.
Yeah.
People were not, Coca-Cola and Dove and Nivea were not on Facebook.
Yeah, I remember.
Share of thought, share of advertising was the same. The attention was the same, but the amount of ads were different.
You could cut through a lot,
right.
a lot more.
And ads were not, they were popular. And Facebook, let's not forget, Facebook had just gone public like 2 years before or something around that. And they were still optimizing their advertising methods and their platform, and they were bringing people on. And then we got lucky somehow, for example, that we got early access to Instagram when no one else was on Instagram other than Visa and Amar. Visa. People thought we were some really, really serious company.
Because these were the associations, right?
But also no one advertised on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like no one knew that they could advertise on Instagram. Facebook was not being advertised on. And then somehow we were doing some workshops with Facebook, and then they had an early program, beta program, for where you could, for the region, it was already launched in the US, where you could drop a pin, and then based on that pin, a certain radius gets created that you choose the radius, you choose the size of the radius, and then you could geo-target.
Yes.
Like,
so you could drop it in the marina, and boom, you got 10,000
and then you could just put marina, new laundry in marina, and everyone's, oh, marina,
boom.
exactly. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh wow, this is crazy. There's this new thing in marina. There's this new thing in downtown. And obviously people want to associate with something pretty quickly. And we got access to all these early tools before anyone else. Was that luck? Yes. But did we ask all the right questions to be able to use them? We did. Why were we doing it when our competitors were not? We were doing it with small budgets. $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. It's nothing.
A month?
A month. Nothing.
That is nothing, yeah.
It is nothing. And our money was focused on operations, having more drivers, having operations, supply, lead our customers' demand. That's where the burn went. The investment was in the customer's experience. When you ordered, how fast could we be there?
And that was your point of difference?
That's how we differentiated ourselves in the beginning. I mean, now if you look at the evolution of the company and how we've evolved, we lost that part of the DNA. Because we became much more cost conscious, then unit economics matter, and then you don't want to burn. Because then as you start to fundraise, which we'll get to in a bit, you're being judged on something called unit economics. How much money do you make, and how much of that revenue do you keep for yourself? Mm-hmm. So what's your top line, and then what's your gross profit, and then what's your net profit, and in our line of industry, in our line of business, you have to make sure that your gross profit is healthy, because that determines the long-term viability of the business. So when we got into that world, we stopped really investing in operations to a point where supply would lead demand, and then the customer experience gets affected. And now we're like back to a world where we're saying, okay, let's forget the fundraising. Let's just make sure the customer experience is great again, and we're back to making the same investments as we were before. But it took us a year and a half to get back to that mentality of saying, why were we great, and why are we not so great anymore? And it's that attitude, right? So fundraising is really good, but sometimes it can hurt you too, yeah? Because it can make you change your focus, and then it goes counter to your DNA. Yeah, you built a business based on skill sets that you have, and now you're trying to minimize what you're really good at.
So if we're still sticking in terms of growth, we're talking about you being an app, based or web-based in terms of focus, to then making a conscious decision to own the kind of chain, the supply chain. So then you end up, as part of your growth, you end up going, hey, let's control the whole thing. Right, from A to Z. Was that the mentality? Because now you've got two setups, so 30,000 square feet. Yeah.
So what happened was, it was a long evolution.
Yes.
So we started off in 2015. We were outsourcing logistics and laundries. Eventually, we realized that it's actually very expensive to outsource logistics. So we decided to bring the guys in house. They became our drivers, our employees. Contractors like transportation companies, and like paying them a monthly fee. We would hire the drivers. We would lease the cars, and we do it ourselves.
Was that cost effective, or was it to reduce pain points that were becoming apparent, or control quality?
To be honest, we interviewed the partners very extensively, so we never had any kind of lack of professionalism on behalf of the contractors. No, it was a matter of just being cost conscious and building something we can scale on.
Yes.
Like a cost structure that you can scale on. Once we built that with the drivers, we kept outsourcing the laundry, and we launched a service called Wash and Fold. the laundry industry here is built in a way where like laundry by the pound was not feasible for them, at least in the way that we believed it was necessary for it to gain notoriety. Meaning, well, and that only came down to one thing. Do you mix my clothes with other people's clothes? And so long as the answer was yes, then there's two problems with that. One is that it's operationally very difficult to do that because then it's cost effective, but operationally very fragile. Two, customers are not willing to accept that notion in this part of the world. How did you wash my underwear with someone else's underwear? So we had to redesign an operation that allowed us to not have that.
Interesting.
Right? So, and it needed to be cost effective. And there was no way to find that in the market. So we went to the US, we went to India. The real insight came from India, from how it was done in India, because it's a common thing. You go to a wash and fold service, you give it to them, and then a few hours later you get it back. And we built it on the back of a laundry we saw in India with a partner that, it's not really a partner, but he sold us the machines. A great guy. Really, really helped us out. Really, really went out of his way to help us out. So that was the wash and fold laundry. So we had an experience with bringing that in-house. It allowed us to drop the prices, increase the quality, and make it a thing that is better than you have at home. It's better than me washing at home right now. Because the dryers are, they're moisture optimized. So your clothes are never like too hard. They're always soft. Your towels always smell good, and they're not too strong, and they're not too weak. And sometimes they smell.
Right.
Sometimes they don't smell enough of a softener. But it was a much better experience than it was anywhere else. Period. Hands down. We move on. And then on the back of that, we kept building our cleaning and pressing, which is the dry cleaning segment. And the dry cleaning segment, we became really big.
Okay.
It got to a certain size where it was no longer viable for us to be delivered. We had 5 to 6 laundries at even one point, including Abu Dhabi. We had 6 laundries that were cleaning everyone else's cleaning all of our clothes. Logistically, it was very difficult. It was quite costly. 2, it was very difficult to standardize everyone's processes in a way that our customer service was able to deliver a unified experience to our customers. Meaning it was, this laundry needed this, and this laundry needed that, and this laundry needs this, and then we need to have one person for each laundry, and then it just became, the complexity of the operation at the volume we reached became so difficult to manage that it was no longer viable for us to keep adding different laundries. We could have done it. But at the same time, we were going through the laundries we were leveraging. We're going through a difficult moment because Expo 2020 is coming along. A lot of hotels have opened. Because a lot of hotels have opened, the average occupancy rate has gone down. Meaning that now the need for laundry for each hotel has gone down. And now laundry is being looked at as revenue goes down for the hotels on the back of, the revenue is spread, because the number of customers coming in is the same, but the revenue is spread across the different hotels. They're lowering their prices, and now they look at laundry as a bottom line, and they're like, that's expensive, we don't have enough of it, let's renegotiate contracts with laundry partners. Laundry partners decide to drop their prices, they have to sacrifice on some small details that they would otherwise not have sacrificed on before. We used to use this chemical, giving examples, that would make shirts really white. It's called an optical brightener. It's very expensive, let's cut that out. And now, I'm just giving small examples.
But it's amazing the dynamics.
And then you see that effect, and then we were like, all right. So some of them are really solid, some of them are not. I can't say their names contractually, but we just felt that at that point in time, it would be crazy for us to leave ourselves exposed, not to the big ones that were always going to be there, but the small laundries that we really relied on and were partners with to help sustain this difficult moment, because we don't really run their operations. We don't have any influence on their choices. They're businessmen, and then as businessmen, they're going to choose to pursue any business that makes more money. And if they're seeing that this investment is not returning the amount of money that they have, they're going to start selling it off. And then so with the sale of one laundry to another, we said, okay, we really need to de-risk. And what does de-risking look like? It's opening our own laundry. And then so on the back of that, we did some research, we traveled around, and we kind of designed a very cool laundry operation that was optimal and that addressed a lot of the concerns that we realized our laundry partners and competitors in the market and peers in the market are not able to deliver, such as low temperature drying, moisture controlled drying, making sure that your clothes don't shrink, tracking your clothes. That's a very important one. For example, right now, every single item that I have here has a QR code, right? So this QR code gives me the full history of this item in the laundry. It's only a piece of paper with a number on it, but that gives me the history of the garment in the laundry.
What it's been through.
Yeah, what it's been through. What program was chosen? Where was it cleaned? When was it cleaned? How many times did it arrive here? What's the name of the person that ironed it? When did they iron it? The customer's complaining about the delivery, about the status of the ironing. Where did the iron go wrong? Was it not ironed properly in the laundry, or was the ironing of it destroyed during transportation? Because then that allows us to get into a world where we can isolate exactly where the problem happens and then identify methods to fix that problem. Whereas before you were looking at a process overall and you were kind of like thinking you're fixing something, and maybe you were, but now insight becomes much easier to get a hold of. You can gain insight. So obviously the laundry was not built just to bring in revenue in-house. That was one perspective.
Sure.
And then it was also built in a way that allowed us to scale without the dependence on so many different partners. But the entire business was built and the operation was built with the customer experience in mind, saying how can we build a process inside a laundry the laundry that we're building that allows us to track a garment from A to Z and identify where our weaknesses are, and then invest in the right areas and put in the right focus. So, should we be focusing on, we were making jokes earlier about cuffs.
That's
like
right,
why are the cuffs not folded properly? Why are we creasing cuffs? We shouldn't be creasing cuffs. So
But now you can
where
go
is that happening?
pinpoint it,
And now
right?
you can go and pinpoint, okay, well, it's this operator on this machine. It's not a pressing problem. It's not an ironing problem. It's not a pressing problem. It's this operator's problem.
Yes.
And this operator is the one that's leading to the issue. And then you can identify that with a log, right? It just says, okay, this item was ironed by this person at this moment at this hour. Is it revolutionary? No. But what's innovative is with the click of a button, I can see a video of exactly how the item was ironed.
You've gone into that setup where you've actually gone brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And now your vision in terms of where you're taking it as part of your growth is pretty much very tech-driven, isn't it?
Yeah. So in terms of how we've done it, we still don't have any shops, right? So our DNA is still digital only in terms of customer facing. We do manage the operation, which required a shift in mentality, a strong shift in mentality. However, what really made a difference was the fact that we approached this with the realization that everything that we're doing now can be replicated anywhere else in the world. So the way you interface with a client is very different in Dubai versus Korea versus the US. Even within the US, Chicago is something, New York is something, Phoenix is something. So the way logistics are different, cost of logistics are different, but what doesn't change anywhere else in the world is how do you clean a piece of clothing? At the end of the day, it's a machine, whether it's a dry cleaning machine or washing machine, you throw it inside, it spins a bit, it cleans the item, and then you take it out, right? Laundries look the same almost everywhere in the world. Dry cleaning and laundry factories look the same almost everywhere in the world. What is common between all these places is the machines and the process, and there's only a few variations to the process of retail, B2C laundries. So we wanted to become very good at that. We've built two versions of the software, one that all of our outsourced partners used to use. That was already very good enough for them. They would have loved for us to sell it to them, but we were not ready to do that. The other one is the one that we're running ourselves now. And we know we've identified a multitude of variations that are very attractive to people that want to acquire the software. We don't sell it yet, but we've said in our development, we've built it in a certain way where it's easy to spin off and replicate and just license to someone else. And then we do, while we were very insular in our early stages, we do realize that what we have now could be beneficial to an industry, to the industry everywhere in the world, not just in Dubai, right? It's not just to us. And I think that's, in all these laundry startups around the world that one of our investors is invested in, where we really differentiate ourselves is in the laundry expertise, the laundry knowledge. We knew our laundry partners very well. We knew their processes very well. And then we built our own laundry, and then on top of that, we built software to manage each chain of the laundry software. And I think that's valuable for people that are, whether they're in Florence, in Rome, in Paris, and in Chicago, in Montreal, Dubai, Seoul, Shanghai, it doesn't matter. The process is the same, and we've been to a lot of cities around the world. I think the last count was 17 countries around the world, seeing how laundries run, and they almost all run the same way. all that needs to be done is a bit of customization and say, okay, what would you like? This feature, that feature, this feature, and then okay, would you like to be able to face your customers with an app? Would you like a driver app too? And then you could just build an operation on the back of that. And then that's where we think we should go, because we're never going to have control of the full world. The full world of laundry. We're never going to be able to acquire global market share. In the B2C space, that's very difficult. On the B2B side, there's a laundry called Elys, E-L-Y-S, that's doing it. Or E-L-I-S, I'm not sure. But Elys is a French company that's doing it. They're doing quite well. But it's different when you're serving hotels. In B2C, every customer, everything is different. How you interface with the customer is different. So we said, instead of trying to go after the entire world, why don't we build, while we keep on operating our laundry, while we keep on expanding, why don't we just leverage the software and sell it to all the markets that we don't want to operate in? And that's kind of one thing we have. Because at the end of the day, in the world of where everything is meant to be transparent and your processes should be open. We're in a world of open source. In an open source world, your advantage is not in the software. Your advantage is in the people that you have, in the underlying processes, and in your investment into optimizing your business practices. The software doesn't make a difference. Like, we could have gone back and given our software and our app to many people, to many laundry operators. They would not have been able to deliver the same returns that we deliver to our investors, because they don't, again, it's the logic, the mentality. What's the business approach? What's the philosophy? Supply leads demand is not a common thing. Investing in supply and burning on supply, on operations instead of marketing, is not a common approach to business, right? So in our world, it's like, okay, well, you're a mom and pop shop of laundry in Florence or in Rome, and you want to use our laundry software, why not? If you're operating a small shop in Nice, you could easily use our laundry software. What do you need? You need accounting modules? We can easily do that, right? So that's the direction we're going in. We'll see how we do. It's just, we need to get our priorities right, and then we should be releasing that sometime around 6 months to 9 months from now.
Exciting times, man.
It's a change in DNA, yeah. It's another change.
But it's just part of the game. Yeah.
It is.
You have to evolve.
You do. When we first launched in 2015, everyone wanted to be the Uber of something.
Yeah.
And I think the crazy part now is you look at Uber and they're still not making any profit, or they're still not making any profits. And I think none of us really realize that the Uber of X doesn't exist. There's only Uber or Lyft or Careem or whatever it is. They do transportation from point A to point B to point C. The only very similar model is food, right? Because from food delivery, the only thing as a customer that changes is the driver is not picking you up as a second step, he's delivering the food to you as a third step.
Sure.
Right? So those are the only two models that really are similar. But maids, for example, home cleaning is a different business. Dog walking is a different business. Laundry is an entirely different business, because when you look at the complexity of laundry, it's shocking to the mind. Just to kind of walk you through it, we go to over 1,000 homes a day. You pick up from each one of these customers. Each bag has around 5 to 6 to 7, 8 pieces of dry cleaning, and then they have another 30 to 40 to 50 pieces of washing and wash and fold. Now, wash and fold is a very separate process. You need to split it into lights and into colors. And then you have items that can be dried in a small dryer, and then towels that are thick cannot be dried in a small dryer, because then they'll ruin the rest of your clothes. So you have to dry them separately. That's just on the wash and fold side. And then you need to clean them, dry them, fold them, and you're drying them in different machines in some cases. And then you need to package them and then return them to the client. And then if they have a dry cleaning order, then that bag gets open and it has, let's say just for simplicity's sake, 10 garments. Out of 10 garments, we have a variety of over 40 cleaning programs that can be chosen. And each type of item has its own type of drying. Some items get put in the dryer for 3 minutes, some get put for 10 minutes, some don't get put in the dryer whatsoever, and they're hang dried.
And here you thought dry cleaning was an easy business.
Yeah.
The misconceptions we have.
Yeah,
right?
it seems like it's a simple thing, right? And the thing is, this garment.
This guy's passionate about dry cleaning.
This garment has a stain, and then we don't really know what kind of stain it is, but it is actually a silk item, and it has a protein stain. Well, silk is actually made from worms, effectively from the enzyme of worms, and a protein stain or a blood stain needs enzymes to break it down. So silk and blood are very terrible together, right? So then, you need to use a very specific spotting or a stain removal agent in order to remove a protein stain
from a silk garment.
From a silk garment that's actually an enzyme of a worm, right? So you're looking at that, and then it needs to go, this one is a long dress, and that thing has some leather on it, and that thing goes there, and then you're effectively taking 5,000 to 10,000 pieces of clothing a day, and kind of just through 500 packages, exploding them into the process of the laundry, and then you have to find a way to clean them, iron them. These colors go together. This bleeds color, this doesn't bleed color. Whites and lights, and then this needs dry cleaning, and this is really soiled, so it needs a 3 cleaning program. It's called 3 bath cleaning program, and this is really delicate, but it's really dirty, so it needs one bath, which is just it's delicate dry cleaning, but it has stones on it that need to be removed and be re-sewed back on, because these stones would melt in a dry cleaning chemical. And then you need to move it, and then you need to iron it the right way, and then this customer wants a crease, this customer doesn't want a crease. These pants get creased or they don't. Some of them have really thick stitches on the side, so you can't really blow them with steam. You have to do them by hand. And then all of that goes into one location where there's a bunch of people that need to recombine these 10,000 pieces of clothing into 1,000, into 1,000 different orders, and they need to arrange them over a schedule of 35 drivers. And we need to put them in a way where the driver then puts them in his vehicle alongside the wash and fold items. And you need to deliver them in the right way, and you need to minimize the amount of time the driver needs to spend at each stop in order to remove the clothes from the car. So we route optimize them. Meaning, if the driver arrives, his trolley, when we as a laundry operation hand over the clothes to the driver, who's our driver? I mean, they're all part of the operations team. When we manage the laundry, we put it in such a way that the trolleys are organized in a way where, okay, these are all the first clothes, first in, last out, right? And then last in, first out. And these have long items like kanduras and habayas, and these don't, and here's the belt, and here's this. And this person put some cufflinks, and then we don't accept cufflinks, so that doesn't go into cleaning. That needs to be found at the end of the process. You need to put a loose item sticker. You need to return. Sometimes we find cash. We have to return cash. Sometimes customers lose their wallets, and we have to return it a day in advance. And all these different complications and complexities.
Sure, sign me up. Yeah.
Right. So all these.
I want to be in this business.
Right, and then you have logistics, and then you have delays because of one customer is meant to see you now, and he tells you please wait 10 minutes, and then the other customer is waiting now the 10 minutes that this customer made you wait for. All these different challenges, they compound, right? There's a compounding effect to every challenge you have.
With every step, it's compounding.
So if you can imagine the entire chain of operation that I mentioned to you, and imagine an error rate of 0.1%. And just to really simplify things, let's assume that there's only 10 parts of the process. So you're getting 99.9% on every single part of the process inside the laundry alone. Now add that to the driver process, and assume that there's 5 pieces. There's 5 steps of the process on the pickup side, and 5 on the drop-off side. So now we have 20 in the network of operations required to fulfill your order. We have 20 steps. 99.9% on every single step is not good enough. It's actually terrible, because 99.9%, if you multiply 0.999, so 0.999, 20 times over, you end up with an error rate of over 1.2%. It's actually around 20 times. We're looking at 97 point something percent. The problem with 97% is on 1,000 garments, 97% means 30 garments that are damaged on 1,000. Imagine on 10,000, that's 300. Now, customers give you on average, like we said, 10 pieces per order. Now, if you want to say each customer had 1 piece that was affected, of those 300 garments that were affected, each customer had 1 piece, then you look at that and you're looking at 3,000 angry customers, but that's more than the customers we served that day.
Yeah.
So it's actually almost 33% of all your customers are angry on that day, or 100% of them are angry that day. The room for error is very small. And 99.99% is what we're aiming for. And that's still too much. So you're in a game of not even, in the operation, you're in a game of seconds, and you're in a game where you need to optimize the 0.001%. Because even 1% error is why 0.1% on 10,000 garments is still 10 garments. And that's way too much, right? Because 10 garments is 100 angry people.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's 10 angry people, right? So it's, you're looking at a very fragile operational network.
It's difficult, man, 100%. And if you have 30, 300 or 3,000 angry customers,
Yeah.
you're not growing and you definitely won't get the funding and all that just goes in place, right?
Yeah, so just sorry, to go back on the 300 pieces I was saying. So yeah, it's 300 pieces, so it's 30%. Assuming each customer gives you one piece, that's on a 97% rate of success, you have a 30% angry customer rate.
Yeah.
From 3%, you have 30% that are upset. That's a very fragile system, right?
Sure.
So we're in the game of these 0.1%. And like you said, it's enough. 80-20 in our business is not enough. Because 80%, the 20% that we mentioned is disastrous to customers. It's disastrous for our business because when you deliver a bad experience 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, people tend to leave.
Yeah.
And the issue is, we're dealing with these very high, it's a high volume of orders, it's a high volume of garments, there's so many touch points. And then eventually you do upset some people and they end up leaving your service and your business. And then it sucks because we are trying so hard to get it right. And the customer at the end, he doesn't see everything before, and he shouldn't even have to care.
Yes.
Right? And they tell you sometimes, you explain to them, it's like, that's your problem. I agree with you. It's my problem, but unfortunately I'm unable to do what you want me to do given my operational structure. Because sometimes they want you to this shirt folded and this shirt hanging and this shirt, please don't fold the cuffs. It's like, listen, I get it. I'm sorry to say I'm not the laundry for you at this stage. When we were small, we were able to accommodate all these things. And now we're not able to because standardization is so important to the process. Customization will come, but you're always ebbing and flowing in operations. You need to kind of figure out steady state at scale. And then you start introducing customizations after that steady state.
Sure.
Right? But along the journey of scale, steady state, scale, steady state, you end up losing some customers that were very loyal to you in the beginning, and it's the sad part of the business, right? Your early ambassadors and supporters are some of the ones that are very disappointed by your growth, right? It's by the way you
part of
evolve.
scaling, you need to standardize.
You need to standardize, and
you
you need to accept that you do lose some people that you really wish you didn't lose, right? Because they're the ones that supported our business when we were early on, and it sucks to hear that a customer that's placed 200 something orders is telling us, hey guys, this has been becoming very disappointing to me. I don't like this anymore. And you have to kind of, and then what I guess sucks even more is to say, you know what, you're right. You're right. We are not able to, we're no longer able to cater to you. You're dissatisfied, but 99.97% are happy. And that's what we're optimizing for. It's, I guess, and that's where it comes back. What comes back to, we go back to, it's
that's part of the negotiation you got to have with yourself at the beginning of the year,
business, right? Yeah, as a business, as an operation, it's we are aiming that. We are aiming for that. We just had our best month operationally ever, despite it being one of our biggest months ever. Again, we chose the right priorities. We chose, we said earlier, we chose customer experience is priority. What does that mean? That means we have to turn down a lot of projects that are not customer experience related. They're they're important projects, but what are the priorities? Customer experience. What does that mean? Okay, well, it means being on time. Okay, so how do we do this now? How do we get 97% or 98% operational efficiency logistics-wise in this area? How do we get, a compensation in the laundry industry is usually around 1 to 2% of your revenues. That's not good enough at our size. When you're a small laundry, that's fine. Because it's not that many people. At our size, when you have that many customers, 0.5% is what we're aiming for. How do we achieve 0.1% compensation? Because some things you just cannot control. Yeah, I mean, some things, sometimes customers will forget, they'll forget a red napkin inside their pocket.
Yep.
And then you end up dry cleaning that because the sorter, the person receiving the clothes didn't remove the red napkin. And then that just bleeds color onto the pan. And you're like, all right, you know what? And then another customer's close, and then you're like, you know what? It's too bad, but this is part of our business.
But at scale, 2% won't work.
No scale, no way. 2% is not good enough. Even 1.5% is massive. You need to be at 0.5%. This month we're at 0.1%.
Respect.
The question is, how do we get to 0.01%? Because we need to accept that 0% will not happen, right? So these are the choices we needed to make as a business. There's always choice. There's a common conversation we have now. It's like, that's a flex feature. We have a thing called flex in the app, but flex, I mean flex feature. We shouldn't be flexing right now. And that's what we came down to. It's stop flexing, let's get our house in order.
And by that you mean Don't show off.
Yeah. We shouldn't be building
Don't
show
want
off
American
features.
flexing, yeah.
Yeah. Don't. Let's not build any show off features. Like if you wanted to right now take this QR code and scan it on your app, I have the ability to give that to you. Yeah. I had the ability to give it to you 6 months ago.
That is cool.
Yeah, I had the ability to give it to you 6 months ago. I can make you watch the video of the moment we received it. I could have given you that 6 months ago. It would have been the wrong decision. That would have been a flex at a time when my house wasn't in order. What benefit is it to you as a client to see something when you might not get this shirt back because it got damaged, because it
I
got a
don't
hole
care
inside?
about your QR code. Where's my T-shirt?
Exactly. It's like, you're trying to be fancy. It's kind of, I always look back to that guy.
Yeah.
I always look back to that guy in the gym. We've all seen him. We might have been him. No, I know I haven't, but we might have been him. The guy who's in front of the mirror who's like flexing and doing all these things, and you're like, man, you've been working out for like 2 weeks. It's usually your friend too. That guy's usually your friend, right?
It's not you.
Yeah, he's usually your friend.
Mama, if you're watching this, I know you're gonna say this is Kev.
Oh, second.
Yeah. So it's like the guy, man, you've been working out for 2 weeks. Like, don't flex, or at least don't tell me your workout is sick because you did rowing of 200 meters in 47 seconds, like when someone else can do it in 34.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be going around telling the world about how amazing your 200-meter row is when you're like so far from everyone. Because we go back to in rowing, it's a game of seconds.
Absolutely.
1 second makes a difference.
Yeah.
2 seconds is different. 13 seconds is massive.
Yeah.
So we can't be out here happy with 1.5% because it's lower than the industry average of 2%.
It was a Kobe Bryant thing as well, right?
Yeah, so that was a sad one, man.
Yeah.
I was shocked that day. I
Yeah.
was super shocked.
Yeah.
I had to check the date. I'm like, is it the 1st of April? And why would anyone make a joke about someone
Yeah.
dying on the 1st of
Absolutely.
April?
Yeah. That hit Allah yarhamah. That
He
really
was
hit everyone.
he's a larger than life figure, All these
100%.
players like Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo,
Yeah.
even Tiger Woods, right?
It's just too
Tiger
soon.
Woods,
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant, all these characters, like, because they're marketed so much that they're larger than life figures. And then, none of them has died, right? He's the first guy to have passed away, which is
Far too soon. I brought him up
it's a
because
shocking thing, man.
what you're talking about is that was his one of his guiding principles, right? It's not about celebrating or flexing. You could be winning and it's back to training.
I think I wrote that when you and I were talking, that I read that. It's about the preseason training. But
Please do tell.
I think so, because in preparation for this interview, you asked me a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
And I remember very clearly when I was writing the email, I remember thinking about that one moment that I watched a long time ago about preseason. They had just won it against the Boston Celtics in 2010.
Okay.
Right? In 2010 they won against the Boston Celtics. And then I remember him saying, okay, preseason's, we've won, it's time to celebrate, time to take a break. He takes a break and then he goes back to his bench presses. And I remember that moment. I'm like, that's why I don't like to celebrate. Not why, but
That's your mentality.
I connect with that mentality because it feels like there's not enough to celebrate yet. Right? It's like, okay, you've won, good, amazing. You fundraised, amazing. Let's take a breather. Let's have a moment. But celebration is confined to very short moments in life, man.
I was telling my brother that what I really liked about the fact that in one of your responses on the email was, yeah, we got funding. That's what we're supposed to do. Yeah, I mean, I went to university and I graduated. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. What else was I supposed to do?
Yeah, what else do you do?
Yeah. That's just your game. Yeah, okay, so we raise finance. That's just part of business growth. Next.
Exactly. It's just like, that's what you do. That's what, and then is there a reason to celebrate that? It's like, there's always reasons to celebrate. There's always reasons to have fun. There's always reasons to go out. And again, we go back to the sense of community and enjoy each other's company. But what does it mean to celebrate a milestone? I don't know. Will I ever throw a party to celebrate something? You know what? Weddings, sure. I love weddings, especially after I've been through mine. Through it, not, you go through a wedding. I love my friends' weddings. That's a reason to celebrate. You're celebrating, the joining of two lives hopefully for eternity, right? And for many, many good moments to come. But in a business, for me, funding is not a thing to celebrate. Maybe even an exit is not something to celebrate. I don't know. But what is there to celebrate? I mean, even for me, man, I'm very, very honestly, if we exit, I'm not going to be celebrating and say, okay, I'm done. I'm just like, man, I have more to do now and I have more responsibility. What do I want to do with my time? What do I want to achieve that I can be satisfied of? Because, what do I want to be proud of? What would I like? What would make me proud? Honestly, building a business doesn't make me proud. I don't see that as a thing, as a moment for me, as a thing to be proud of. It's what you do with what you have that makes you proud. And then what you do is based on your values. Like for me, I can't imagine a world in which I'm not helping others. But I can't imagine me being an executive coach and only as an executive coach, because then if I'm not building, I don't feel good. So I need to be a builder and I need to be working with people. So then based on all of that, what would it look like for me to have a life that I can look back on and be like, okay, I've lived well.
Maybe it's a whole
I
heap
don't
of
have an
pre-seasons.
answer. I was talking to my executive coach about this a few days ago, and I was like, I don't know. I'm confused, and I think I'm comfortable being confused at this point.
But your place of confusion is clarity for a lot of people.
Fair enough, right? But I'm playing in my own league, right?
Sure.
Everyone can play in their own league. I'm playing in mine, and for me now, it's like, okay, well, what does it mean within the position that I'm in right now, within the commitments that I've made to this business, to my investors, to my family, to my extended family, to my wife? Where's the room? What do I have to do in order for? What things do I need to compromise on personally? What things do I need to ask them to compromise on in order for me to move in a direction that's like good? And for me, like for example, it's helping kids to some degree, going to speak to some kids about entrepreneurship, saying that entrepreneurship is not this amazing thing that everyone should do. It's not. It's actually very difficult. It's lonely. It's challenging. I mean, that's why I like to open up about these challenges. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk was the first one that made me realize that, hey, even though the funny thing is, everyone accuses him of being the hustle porn guy. Sorry for that language, but the hustle porn guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's the first guy that made me realize, hey man, mental health, in the vast definition of mental health, is a challenge for entrepreneurs, and it's like, you guys need to be aware of it. You should be aware of it. You should be aware of it. You should be aware of it. And in my head is, yeah, everyone else should be aware of it. Until the moment I was like, hey man, you know what?
I should be aware of it.
Yeah, my friend is not my friend. I am my friend too.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I said, yeah, you know what? This is a challenging thing. I've gone through it. I seem to have gone through it quite well based on how my environment is telling me that I've gone through it, based on how I feel every single day. And it's like, I see my friends, and I've referred a lot of entrepreneurs to executive coaching who have taken it on. Right? And it's like, for me, that's a dent that I want. If you leave, if an entrepreneur leaves with one thing, it's like, for me, it's like, if that's executive coaching, amazing. If that's agreeing with your co-founder about something that having a conversation that you should have had, that you might have not have had, that's one thing.
Yes.
If it's you to not get into entrepreneurship because that's not for you,
Yes.
or maybe you realize that your decision-making process is not good enough and refined enough for such a big decision,
Yes.
that's enough.
Man, and that is a gift.
I like helping, right?
And that is a gift.
Yeah.
Because I'm that person, that last example they used.
Yeah.
If someone like yourself could help Kevin at 20 or at 18 realize that entrepreneurship is actually not for him based on his goals, you would have saved me a lot.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think one of the reasons it's difficult to speak about these things is there's multiple reasons. One is the voice of authority is a difficult one to find, right? It's like, well, what do I know? I'm 31. That's the first thing. And I go back to that. As you can see, I'm very, not cynical, that's not the right word. I'm very conservative in knowing when to speak and what to speak about. Some things I cannot speak of. I cannot talk about an exit. I cannot talk about difficult fights among co-founders. I can't talk about that. But some companies go through it, and when my friends in those companies come and talk to me, I can't help you. But what I can go back to is like, hey, I've read about this thing about co-founder decisions, and I realized that if I had followed that, then maybe I would have been out of this situation. You seem to have been, you got an unlucky card and you're dealing with the full stack of it. But, go read that. That's the extent to which I can do. But when it comes to situations,
your help is in pointing directions, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's the limit. In some cases, I can't really help whatsoever. If you want to tell me how you want to, where to invest your money, I have no idea. I have no idea where to invest your money. I have
Scrap
no idea.
that question.
Yeah, where to invest your money, what to do, I have no idea what to do with that. But when it comes to talking about my experiences and how I dealt with them, and how I optimize, I can share that. Right? That's what I enjoy.
There are many mistakes when it comes to funding, or especially when you're seeking out funding. When it's early on, you're seeking, say, for example, the 400,000. I just would love to know, how did you know that you needed 400? If that was the case, how did you know who to get it from? Because not all money is good money.
Fair enough, yeah.
Anything you could help us in terms of elaborating on the
topic of funding is very complex,
process.
right?
Yeah.
So in early stages, it doesn't matter whose money it is. honestly, so long as it's clean money. I don't know how else to say it, right?
Okay.
You just
in the
want
sense
money.
of, what about influence? Like, can they have an influence, or was that part of the thing? When you accepted the $400,000, did you allow them to have control over
No,
the direction?
but that's what I was going to get to.
Okay.
It's clean money. It's neat. It's nothing for you to worry about. And by nothing for you to worry about is you're going to pass, if you want to raise money from anywhere in the world after, you're going to pass anti-money laundering
Okay, so
provisions.
clean, literally.
I mean, clean money meaning you literally need to know who's investing in you.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do? What are their practices? How have they made their money? So for us, we went with friends and family, and it's all guys like us working in banking, consulting, oil and gas. One friend's father, and a bunch of friends, right? So for us, I mean, we didn't even think about it. In retrospect, when we went through an investment from Henkel Ventures, which is a public German,
That's right.
which is the investment arm of a public German company, they came in with a bunch of anti-money laundering requirements, and we're like, okay, well, that's easy. But I mean, the reason I say it that way is just you need to be very aware of who you're accepting money from. Once you've done that, is you need to make sure that you keep control not just of the board of directors very early on, but you also keep reserved matters reasonable so that you don't hurt yourself for future investments. Again, my partner Rami can talk more about this because he's the guy that handled it. But from my perspective, where I was sitting on the board of directors, I wanted to make sure that in the first round of funding, we kept control of the board to some degree, right? I mean, meaning no one could approve a budget and force it down our throats. That's the most important one. But the other parts were what terms were in this funding round and how would they be perceived by future investors? To what degree do they disadvantage us? Are there any red flags for future investors? Some of them are like the anti-dilution preferences, which people should be aware of. What are the
that was made famous on the social network, right?
Yeah.
That scene was made beyond the entrepreneurship.
I'm not familiar with I don't remember that. I wasn't aware of startups back then.
Yes.
But anti-dilution is a critical one. Then you have liquidation preferences. And then you have something called participating. So you as a founder should fight participating with all of your heart.
What does that mean?
Participating is a certain clause that's inserted. It's a condition of funding that pretty much says if you raise funds, there's a certain mechanism through which the investor takes their money back. And it puts founders at a great disadvantage if their company doesn't grow. Mm-hmm. We go back to, it's like, and then VCs come and say, oh yeah, but if your business is doing well, you should have nothing to worry about. It's like, yeah, but we negotiate the divorce before we get married, right? That's the thing. We agree on how things should go now before they go wrong, if they were ever to go wrong. And this term is an aggressive term that tells me you don't believe in me. And do we really want to be entering a relationship in which you don't believe in me? So one thing I give my co-founder a lot of credit for is he was very determined about saying, this term is not good for us in the future. This term doesn't tell me you have trust in my business. Do you want to come in with me as a partner? Are you sure you're going to have my best interest in mind? So he negotiated those points very well.
That's interesting because very often when it comes to funding, you're just so focused on right now we need to get funding. You're not thinking of what seems to be very critical. You're constantly referring to terms and how is this going to affect the future?
Correct. Always forward looking. So the terms of the money, the source of the money, the conditions of and the way the funding terms impact your future fundraising initiatives. Because anything you give today, it's like in management. If you give someone a bit of leeway today, that leeway is not quantifiable. You can't, if the rules are this is as far as you go and they want 2 inches more, when they go 7 inches more, but you gave me 2 inches before, or you gave that person leeway. And then you took so much more. It's like, no, there's no leeway here. It hurts you, period. The conditions are very important and you have to fight for your business. That's one thing my co-founder did very well. He fought for the business. He didn't stop. He made sure we got the most, he made sure he maximized the best terms that we could have gotten. Like, are there terms that we could have gotten that were better? Yes, but were they detrimental to any future fundraising initiatives? No. Would we have liked them to be different? Yes, but in the end, okay, it matters, but it's not worth fighting over. But there are some terms that you must fight over. You need to be very clear about the conditions of your fundraise. So again, I go back to like what are the liquidation preferences you're giving? What are the participating? Is it participating? Is it not participating? What are the anti-dilution measures you're giving? all the investors should be coming in on the same terms in every funding round. You should minimize or even eliminate side agreements, like, because that brings politics into your board of directors. Like, I shouldn't be agreeing one thing with you and then one thing with another investor, and then I sign a side agreement with you that they don't know about. That's dangerous. You're setting a bad precedent. That's the word, precedent.
Yes.
You don't want to set any precedents that might tarnish your reputation as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Your word as an entrepreneur.
Beyond just one project.
Beyond just one project,
Because it's you.
It's your name, and these things follow you. No matter, we live in a world now that's so interconnected. You want to make sure that your integrity is untouched, especially at that level. So avoid side agreements. We never got into any side agreements, but I know founders that are in them that got into trouble. Not legally speaking, but just their business got into trouble because of these side agreements. You want to avoid that. And then at the end of the day, don't raise enough for you to be comfortable, but don't raise so much just to boast about it. Again, I go back to a big round is a big responsibility. Raise adequate amounts for your business, put a margin of comfort, raise more than what you think you need. Don't be cheap on the amount of equity you sell from your business. That's if you're a startup. If you're in private equity, I have no idea how that fundraising mechanism works. But if you're in a startup, you raise money in exchange for equity. Don't be cheap with your equity, because that can hurt you if you don't have enough cash going forward. Be very careful of your cash flow. Be very cognizant of your unit economics if you are in an operationally heavy business. If you're in a pure software business, I can't give advice about that. I have no idea how it works.
But in your game, when you guys went and you did your round, say in this case your seed B, which was 6.2, right?
Yeah.
Or thereabouts. How did you work out that was the figure you needed? Like, were you looking into, okay, we need this for the next 5 years? Is that the runway?
Well, so the way we did it was, okay, how much money? What will this laundry cost? X amount.
You're talking about building that infrastructure?
Yeah, building the laundry. What will it look like to hire a tech team in Lebanon and scale that tech team? What will the management team in Dubai look like? What will the management team in Lebanon look like? How much money do we need for marketing? And how much money do we need for room for error?
And what span were you looking at? 6 months, 12 months, 24 months?
The way we try to fundraise is we try to fundraise so that we never have to raise funds again unless we absolutely need to. I mean, again, that's for us, because we know that laundry is not a sexy industry. It's a very, very boring industry with very small market potential locally. So for us, it's like, okay, we're going to raise money, and then can we bring the cash out valuation of our business to be equal to 50% in our case, because in our case, the 50% to 75% of the cash in valuation. If the answer is yes, then that's what the answer was yes, and that's what we fundraised for. That's why we raised that amount. Say, okay, we raised at this X valuation, and we promise that we can exit at 50 to 75% of that, and then, okay, how much money do we need? And then let's raise that amount of money and let's go there. So that's kind of how we did it. Again, every industry is different. If you're in seed, it's not that. If you're in a seed round, you say, okay, how much money do I need? How long do I think I need to get into my proof of concept or my MVP? How much sales do I want to get to before I raise the next round? How much money do I need to get there? Okay, I need 6 engineers. Each engineer is $100,000 per year. I need them for 2 years. That's 600,000 times 2. That's 1.2 million. And I need all the benefits and stuff that I'm going to give them. That's 1.8 million. I'm going to raise a bit more just for like security, $2.2 million. That's how much you raise. And then you negotiate it to be at a decent valuation. And you negotiate good terms. That's a very quick example.
Sure.
But
it's far complicated than what we're trying to do and what we're trying to give. Both you and Rami are first-time founders.
Yes.
How did you learn all this?
On the job. You just deal with it.
You just deal with it.
You
Good,
just deal
solid
with it.
advice from the father-in-law.
Yeah.
What advice would you give entrepreneurs who are either at the idea stage or they're executing? It's a newfound business.
Yeah.
They want to build it. 2 or 3 tips.
Make
sure they excel or
be
save.
hands-on. Be close to your customers. Be close to your employees. Manage expectations of everyone around you very clearly. Manage the expectations of your partners. Manage the expectations of your customers. Manage the expectations of your team. Define what work needs to be done. Be very clear with deadlines. Be flexible in allowing people to change these deadlines if they have a good argument for it. I mean, it's just general business advice, right? It's just general management advice. Work on your skill set. Hone your craft. What is your craft? Like, do you need to be a great operations manager? What does that mean? Do you need, okay, I need to learn analytics and I need to learn SQL and I need to learn Excel. I was terrible at Excel when I first started. I didn't even know how to use it. I never even built a model. Now I can build models for fun. So that was a requirement of my job. In the meantime, what else is your skill? What is required from you? Management skills. Well, read about management. If you don't have the skill, then talk to people who are good at it. If you don't know anything about funding but need to fundraise, get into fundraising. You have to be curious. You have to hone your intellectual curiosity.
Is there a podcast or a book that you recommend beyond what we've suggested or what we mentioned already?
So for me, I listen to a bunch of podcasts. There's not only one, right? You have, my favorite one is my favorite blog is called Stratechery by Ben Thompson.
Okay.
It's a very, very popular one. It's a paid one. It's worth it. I've mentioned it before on other podcasts I've been on. The other one I recommend is Farnham Street, The Knowledge Project, Farnham Street by Shane Parrish. It's excellent. Invest Like the Best with Patrick O'Shaughnessy. I think that's his name. Patrick O'Shaughnessy. Really good one. I highly recommend Danny in the Valley also. It's about all these different topics. But if you want something that's really about management, then it's The Knowledge Project for sure. It's an excellent one. I recommend firstround.com. They have a blog series that's excellent too. I highly recommend that. That's kind of what I read.
I think the reality comes from the fact that you need to make the decision to be curious.
Yes.
And the information is all out there.
Yeah.
For you to be able to do that.
Be intellectually curious.
For those who'd like to, people who've watched, listened so far, they'd like to follow you, perhaps follow your thoughts.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere that they can follow you or you'd like them to
So I don't have anything at the moment. I don't post. I haven't really gotten the hang of it yet, but I'm on Superficial Jad on Twitter and Instagram. I don't even use them, but I'm there. You'll see a few blog posts about flat earth theory that I found insane. That's one thing. So on Medium, I'm on haveanopinion.com. It's a ridiculous name, but it's a joke about everyone has an opinion.
Sure.
So like, I'm there. I don't publish my thoughts. I don't publish my conversations with people. It generally goes back to the theme of I'm not sure what voice I want to have yet, and what the sound is and what the direction of it is. Once I do figure it out, I'll just be flicking the switch, editing the articles and flicking the switch and publishing them.
Sounds good. What we'll do is we'll make the links available.
Perfect.
And this is going to be an evergreen thing. So whenever you do have published links, what have you, we'll edit the video or the podcast and we'll put the links in there.
That'd be amazing.
Is there a quote or a guiding philosophy that you live by? Something you've read, something you've listened to, and you go, hey, this is me. Or this has been me. This one-liner defines me, kind of like the Kobe preseason. That's me.
You know what? It's a funny one. It's a ridiculous one, and I'm going to paraphrase it. But it's when I was studying for my CFA level 1. So I was an engineer. I was studying for CFA level 1. It was so far, it was so left field compared to what I was doing. I was listening to a lot of like motivational videos, and then
you can do it.
Yeah, I guess not really that. It was just Jose Mourinho, football coach of Chelsea. I think back then he was in Chelsea or something. I forget. It was Chelsea or Real. I don't know. I actually don't know. But he was a coach, and I loved this character. I loved this persona. And then one question they would ask me is like, Jose, do you feel any pressure from losing the 3 consecutive games or 2 consecutive games? It's like, pressure? What is pressure in football? Pressure is millions of parents around the world not feeding their kids food. Pressure in football? There is no pressure. So that's kind of like I believe in that. It's like at the end, it's all going to be all right. And all right is relative. I guess that's what he's trying to say. Pressure is relative. And there's no reason to really beat yourself up over that, right? There's no reason to really stress. There's a lot of people there that are struggling, that are suffering. I hope you're not one of them. And then, in that moment, just put things into perspective and then decide where to go from there. It's not one thing I lead my life by, but it's true that I do have a very...
It's a truth that resonates, and I can see it in the calmness of your personality. Yeah,
it's something that I do accept. It's like there's a lot of things that are worse out there than anything that I'm dealing with. My family history is not something we've touched on, but when I hear the history of my mother being in an airport and then the airport being like blown up by a terrorist back then in Beirut, it's like that's hard. People lost lives there. Some people had families that lost them, and it's like for me, it's like okay, and I didn't.
Tough day in business.
Yeah, tough day in business, or like I can't even imagine what problems I have. You know, we make jokes at Washmen all the time saying first world problems. These are, you know, we're solving first world problems, but it's you know, it's, we don't mean that in a bad way, but given the challenges that people face everywhere around the world, we're just doing business at the end of the day. There's a lot of things that are out there that are worse. We get the luxury of being able to stop and think and reflect. And it's like, what pressure is there? At the end of the day, I think we're all going to be all right. Maybe not all, you know, maybe not everything is going to be great. Maybe not everything is going to be okay. But generally, things are good. You know, and it's like, if they're not good in areas you want them to be good at, then just try to fix it. You know, it's like the ocean, you know, the sea in Lebanon is dirty. I want to help clean it. I can just go and clean it, right?
But you said it beautifully. The fact that we have a luxury to be able to stop and think.
Yeah, it is a luxury. We're not fighting for survival. We're not fighting for survival. Dubai is one of these cities that's like, we're so comfortable. And we're blessed to have this comfort, this safety, this security. Like, you know, in Montreal, we had that too, right? But in Beirut right now, for example, it's like, it's a bit tough, you know? You go down on the street, you don't know where they're going to be burning tires right now. So like, you know, if you have the luxury to think, if you're all right, your family's all right, everyone's health is good, what more can you ask for?
100%, man.
What more can you ask for?
100%.
Yeah.
Bro, I really appreciate the fact
Thank
that you've made the time, you've shared your thoughts, and I really love the eloquence of how you share a thought.
Thank you.
And I hope more people get to hear, see, you know, your work that gets published over the years to come.
Thank you.
I have no doubt as well that with Washmen, you're going to do great things and also beyond this.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, bro. Much
man.
appreciated.
Appreciate it.
Folks, I got so much out of this conversation. I'm sure you would have as well. If you resonated with Jad's voice and his thought, I have no doubt that whether you're watching or listening to this on the podcast, that you would have resonated with the message. Like I always say, please go back and watch this video a second time, or, you know, listen to this podcast a second time. I guarantee that there will be so many more things that you'll pick up the second time around. As always, we'll make the summary show note available on my website, kevinabdulrahman.org/podcast. Just type in Jad and the podcast will come up. We'll make everything available. Man, you gave me quite a bit to think about. Think about.
That was the point, yeah? That was the objective.
And it also made me realize that this business is far more difficult. Not only is it not sexy, it's far more difficult than, you know, what people realize. I think, it's just the cufflinks.
That's why I excel in the back end, man.
Yeah.
In areas where it's not visible.
Yes, 100%. And there's just so much. I mean, there was so much I want to touch on. Perhaps we'll do a part 2 when you're free.
Hopefully.
Of the many things that we discussed, if you'd like to add to the conversation, please make sure you do so in the video below. Continue a train of thought, add to it. If you have any questions, ask those questions. I'll try to answer it. Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe we'll get Jad to answer some of those questions as well.
Yeah.
Ask anyway. We'll see what we can do for you. I hope you realize that with the idea with this show is to help you get inspired, get informed, and get going. I'm certain we were able to do this for you on this occasion. Until the next episode, I'm Kevin Abdulrahman. This is How Do They Do It?